a playlist original.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special, spooky episode of Back to the Blockbuster. My name is Gaius Bowling, and I am joined by frequent guest, our boy Donnie. How you doing today?
Hello there. I am doing alrighty.
Nice. So I was like, when we were recording our regular episode for this week, I was like, hey, we don't have like a Halloween episode, and I can release one on Monday on October 31st. So this is perfect. So we're recording today on October 26th, a Wednesday. This episode will be out on October 31st on Halloween. And I figured it'd be no better time than to kind of talk about the Halloween franchise, but not so much in like the deep dive way that some of us did when we did Friday the 13th, but more of a general kind of a little bit where the franchise kind of started a little bit, but where it kind of has gone and where it could be going now. After its last installment seems to have pissed a lot of people off. Not me, I liked it.
Oh, I loved it. No, I loved it.
I liked it, but it's still. I'm actually. I made the mistake of joining a like like a group on Facebook for Halloween. And it's supposed
What
to be
is it,
about the
Halloween fans?
yeah, it's supposed to be for like all the whole franchise. They've all been talking about ends and like they're all just fighting with each other. And since I've clicked on the group so many times, like it keeps coming up on my timeline when even if I don't want it to. Uh, so a
Yeah, I
lot of
ran into a lot of that too.
a lot of angry fans. I
Like,
guess.
I'm sorry that it wasn't the movie you wanted, but you didn't make it, so deal with it.
So deal with it. Yeah, and honestly, 5 years from now, they'll reboot it and they'll probably give you the exact movie you want, which I guess is just like a standard like slice and dice slasher
Mhm.
movie. But before we get to any of that, not it doesn't have to be specifically the first movie, but like when did you kind of get introduced to the Halloween franchise and what did you think of it when you first got introduced to it?
So, like most horror franchises, if anyone that watches these would know that I've been watching horror movies since I was at a young age. As for Halloween, well, I started with the first one because I saw the cover for it and I'm like, hey, that looks pretty cool. So naturally, I watched it, but I didn't watch two and three right after that. I actually hopped to four, thinking. Well, I didn't know which one it was. I just thought, okay, Halloween, Michael Myers, cool. So from then on, I watched four and five, and I started watching them in a very odd order. So I bounced back to two. I found out about three. I found six because it had a blue cover, and I'm like, hey, I like blue. Why not? And then from there on, I watched the rest of them, and I'm like, and I became a fanatic. I mean, yes, I was a kid. I watched Resurrection probably a handful of times as well, just like the rest of them. But I was a kid. What did I know? I got older. I realized what the problem was. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I had a very bounced around timeline. I guess you could say just like the Halloween franchise has had, a very bouncy timeline. But yeah, I've had a weird order with them, but all these years later, I'm still watching these movies, and they have a very special place in my heart. I can rank them now accordingly based on my preference and quality, but altogether, I think they all just have a special place in my heart. Resurrections maybe not so much now, but I have my memories with it, so I guess I have to say yes, it's part of me, so whatever.
uh Resurrection's the reason I haven't bought that last 4K box set that has like the last
Oh, they
it
included
has like
that.
it has like the Curse of Michael Myers, H2O, and Resurrection. And I'm just like I was like I already own it on like I already have it in that one Blu-ray box set.
Yeah,
I don't need Resurrection 4K, so I was like just sell these individually or drop the price a lot.
yeah, no,
So
of
I'll buy.
course.
I do not want to spend $119 for like one movie I really like. Curse I can like tolerate, but then the other one is just like no, I don't really want to do that.
Have you seen the producer's cut for Curse?
Yeah, I do think that's better. I think it's a more coherent movie.
Despite that one plot element that doesn't really seem to rub fans the
Yeah, yeah. But
I'm
like
not a big fan of it either. I thought it was a little silly. I'm like, well, I guess, but if you're a cult, you're a cult, but
yeah,
that's still
yeah.
a little. That's still a little strange.
Yeah, it is. As far as I like, I mean, I kind of posted it yesterday because yesterday was the 40 the first one came out 44 years ago. I of course was not born then, but I grew up with the original Halloween, and like the original Halloween is why I kind of fell in love with movies. It was like not only like my favorite horror movie, but like one of my favorite movies, just because like I like the just the idea like how it's made for barely nothing, and just a group of people that just wanted to like make a movie, and like hearing all those stories about how like the actors basically wore their own wardrobe from like JC Penney, and like they didn't really like they were like they were like helping pick up leaves and gathering leaves for like because it's supposed to look like fall in like Illinois, but they shot in like Pasadena, California, and then like certain areas of Los Angeles. Like the actors were helping, like they were crew. And it's that whole like kind of like guerrilla filmmaking, like kind of like, hey, we all
Mhm.
just want a group of friends to get together and make a movie, and like not really knowing like what they were gonna create would turn into this like massive thing. And then like and the funny thing too about the original Halloween is that even when it first came out, it wasn't really massive at first. It was kind of landed with a thud with certain people. Like certain critics were just like dismissed it, and
Yeah,
there was like a critic from the Village Voice was like one of the first to be like, no, this is a really like legit suspenseful
this
scary
is a
movie.
smart movie
It's a
that they
smart
made
movie. And
on
then
such a simple,
yeah,
background.
and then it got reevaluated, and I think Roger Ebert, R.I.P. the guy with the two thumbs up. He also gave it like 4 stars when he reviewed it, and he compared it to Psycho, which is of course very fitting because Jamie Lee Curtis played Laurie Strode. Her mother Janet Leigh was in Psycho, and then
Yeah.
like all and then I think a lot of critics after that started to reevaluate it, and then it started to like pick up steam. Like it was more like a word of mouth
Hmm.
kind of sensation. I saw it very early. It terrified me as a kid. It actually still, in its own way, scares me. I get a little unsettled watching it alone. Uh, I think because
Yeah,
even though
I think it really toys with the atmosphere a lot, and I think I can just, you really have to be thankful for the camera work there.
yeah,
Is because it's got some very unique imagery in there. I mean, just the ending alone with Laurie going into the house and finding all of her dead friends,
yeah,
and then you just see Michael pop out of the shadows the way he does at the stairs, and
yeah,
that's the stuff of nightmares, man. Like that's the one thing you like. You get a glass of water at night, and the last thing you want to see is a face just peer out of the darkness.
exactly.
It's exactly what Michael was, and I'm like, ooh, that's
Yeah,
actually a really good shot.
yeah, and
Even
that
all these
movie's
years
like,
later, I still get a like.
yeah, that movie's like all build up too. Like, I mean, like nothing. I mean,
Mhm.
nothing of like kind of visceral like impact happens until like the last 15, like
Yeah,
20,
like
15,
the
20
like the
minutes.
set like towards the end
Yeah,
of the second act is when all
yeah,
the good
like
stuff
it's all
starts
like this.
happening.
It's all this build up and lurking, but the lurking is creepy. Like her spotting him throughout the day and like not really
Hmm.
being like kind of unsettled by it, but like not thinking much of it, and
Like
like
she kind of just like it's Halloween, it's whatever.
yeah,
Somebody's just
yeah,
playing a joke.
and like the whole build up of like and I think even though they do a good job of making it seem like it takes place in like the Midwest, it does
Yeah,
feel like it could be like your little suburban neighborhood that you're in. uh I think Scream in its own way has that kind of ability too, where it feels like, all right, this could happen in like my neck of the woods, and like
yeah.
that also kind of makes it a bit scary. So I always thought it was a truly like scary movie, and I saw part two almost right after, and I remember being younger thinking that part two was just as good as the original because it's that whole like it picks up on the same night, and
I
like
have a
it's
bit of an unpopular opinion regarding that. I
oh yeah.
actually favor the second one over the first sometimes.
Oh really? Oh what? Okay.
I
Oh,
I I think what
knowledge.
really does it, I think what does it for me is well, not only Dick Warlock's Michael Myers, his very robotic Terminator presence, and just the way he moves is just very like eerie.
Yeah.
But the score alone is actually something else that does it for me. I think John Carpenter really did away with making it more 80s esque since the
Yeah.
movie is in the 80s, even though
Yeah.
it takes place like the night after.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I think something about Halloween 2 just rubbed me the right way that I just felt, huh, they actually tried something. They try to keep the continuity, which was nice.
Yeah.
Except for Jamie Lee Curtis's wig.
Yeah.
You
And I
could tell
think
the difference right
I
away.
think that she
There
was
was a
like
wig on
she
her
had cut
head.
her head she had cut her hair right for another movie, and like by the time
Yeah,
they
I think it was Trading Places.
yeah
I
yeah
think it was for Trading Places or something because she had short hair in that one.
yeah
But
so
yeah,
yeah
I don't know. It's something about Halloween too. It just I don't know. There was just some things that I didn't really. I'm not really a big fan of the whole Michael Myers and Laurie Strode being brother and sister thing
yeah,
because it doesn't
neither is
really
John
explain
Carpenter,
itself very.
even though he came up with it.
It just doesn't really explain itself very well, you know. And when you think about it, in the first movie, when Michael kills his sister, there really isn't a baby in there in the house when you think when you think about it.
Right. They try to explain it away that she was such a young girl when she got like adopted by the Strodes and like all. I
Hmm.
mean, it like it works enough where you're like, all right, I kind of buy it. Um,
Yeah,
but you could
yeah,
tell
no,
it was like,
it tries, but
yeah, yeah,
it just doesn't make sense to me.
and I think with like part two, right? Like, because they actually filmed extra scenes for like the television version of the first one, so they were
Yeah, where
able to
she
kind
visits Michael in the.
yeah, so they were able to fill in some blanks too with like because there's I guess there's certain scenes they couldn't show on TV for the original Halloween,
Hmm.
so they had to like add like filler almost to like pad out 2 hours of like TV time. So you get like that extra
Yeah.
scene with her and Linda, like I think like Laurie just gets out the shower, and her and Linda have a scene together. That's supposed to be in the first movie. Uh
Hmm.
I think Donald Pleasance has a scene where he talks to these group of doctors about Michael and about how evil he is and like all this other stuff. So they, they're doing that while they're also filling in these scenes for Halloween 2, where they're kind of being like, oh, well, Laurie went to go visit him at one point, I guess. I mean, I feel like it would be something she would have remembered. Because
Exactly.
it wasn't like she was a young child when like that was supposed to have taken place. Um, but I guess one of those things that you just go with, right? He like John Carpenter said he hated doing it, but he said he had no like Halloween was supposed to be like a standalone movie. He didn't want to make a sequel to it. Like
Yeah,
he
no, that's why after the second one, he wanted to kill Michael off,
right.
you know, because he was like, yeah, this is where it needs to end. Like the stalker is just a stalker. He's nobody else. He's just some dude that
Right.
escaped the mental asylum, and he went on a killing spree on just
Yeah.
out of sheer randomness, you know.
Yeah. I do like the idea in the first one though, if you take away the brother sister element,
Hmm.
that it's just this weird like she drops off a key there and he sees her and it's just this weird like
And then follows her
infatuation he
everywhere.
almost had that he has with her where like
Hmm.
and you can even in the first one you can be like maybe if you even take that brother sister element out, maybe it's something about her that reminds him of his sister that he killed at the beginning of the movie
Yeah,
and that's why he's
Edith. Yeah.
following her around. But I think that's scarier that like he has this encounter that he sees and she doesn't, and
Yeah.
she becomes like his singular focus like the rest of the movie, and then like the way he kind of gets rid of her friends almost systematically, like I want it to end up with just like me and you, and
Hmm.
like there's something really creepy and like unsettling about that. uh
And there's even that song that Laurie sings when Annie like stops at her house when they're walking home,
oh
and
yeah,
she's singing that song like just me and you
you
and
yeah, and he's
you
just
know
staring at her while he
and he's just staring at her. I'm like, ooh, good foreshadowing.
yeah. um yeah, I feel what you're saying about the second one because there's parts of it that I think are I agree with the music. I love the extra like kind of sense that they add to it. Like it
Mhm.
almost sounds like that's like a good like thumpy like 80s
Yeah.
beat mix in with like the classical like piano that they were using. I think that's when Alan Howard started working uh on the music with him, and they were kind of doing that to
Mhm.
kind of together. And yeah, and like I think actually all the musical themes that are in the first movie sound, in my opinion, I know, and I guess you agree too, they sound a bit better in the sequel. Even like the Laurie's theme sounds a bit stronger, and like
It
uh
does. That I think that's actually one of my favorite themes from the second one.
yeah.
And another thing that does it for me too, 100% is that chasing
Oh yeah, it's good.
when he
Even though
sticks the nurse.
he's moving pretty slow. But yeah, it is a
Yeah.
pretty good. It's a pretty good chase scene. I love how it starts. I mean, like the biggest thing against Halloween 2 is that like it came out in the wake, like, after the success of Halloween. You get Friday the
Came out in the
13th.
wake of slashers.
Yeah, you get Friday the 13th, and everyone says that Halloween started the slasher movie trend. I think the way we know it in the 80s, I think Friday the 13th started that, where it's
Yeah.
like more gore and less story, and then so Halloween 2 had to compete with that. So there's clearly a lot more, and even by like slasher movie standards, I don't even think Halloween 2 is that gory, but there are a lot more
I was gonna
kills
say,
in
yeah,
it.
because there's a lot more close-ups of the deaths,
Yeah,
but it managed to keep that same tameness that the first one did regarding the kills, where it's not too bloody, it's not too over the top, it's just right where you
right.
just know that it's like, okay, that could probably happen.
So I like, because I like the one that mirrors like the Laurie and his scene where he appears in the shadows and he's behind that nurse, and that's when he kills her with the hypodermic needle, like right in her temple. It kind of calls back to that shot. So it's like it's
Yeah,
yeah, it's a lot, but it's still a cool like shot. But yeah, my
it
favorite kill is
is.
that the scalpel in the back to that nurse that he just like lifts up, and it's
I'm
just
just
and
wondering. I'm like,
quiet
how much do you have to do arms or not
to do
skip
that.
arm
Yeah,
day to be able to lift her up with a single scalpel?
but it's so cool because it's so quiet, and then her shoes hit the ground, and that's when like the shape stalks Laurie music
Song
starts,
starts.
and like
Hmm.
and that chase scene is really good. And I actually like even more when she's outside after they show up to the hospital and for some reason she can't get the words "help me" out of her mouth until they shut the
Hmm.
door, and then she like screams it, and then she's like walking trying to get back to the door, and he just comes out of nowhere behind that red light and like starts to
Yeah, that
follow
was a
her
pretty
inside.
that was a pretty like that was a pretty tight scene. You're
Yeah,
you're just wondering is like is she gonna get inside or not
yeah,
because they're taking too long to hear her banging on that door.
yeah. I think with Rick Rosenthal, who directed it, I think it, other than arguably Halloween 2018, I think he comes the closest to capturing what the Carpenter movie looks like, at least, or at least the feel of
Hmm.
it. And but I mean, there are a bunch of characters that you don't really care about. I mean, there are more characters to add to the body count, like the most of the hospital staff. I guess Jimmy, you
Yeah,
might. I guess you can like Jimmy. Jimmy's likable.
yeah,
Um,
I like Jimmy. I guess just because of the actor, I'm familiar with him. Lance Guest.
yeah,
The reason I'm familiar with him is because of Jaws: The Revenge.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
you know,
He was in the Last
that's about it.
Starfighter.
Yeah, that too. That's another
Yeah,
one.
but yeah, but the rest of them are just kind of there. Um, so I get why, like, once I look at it as like a film, I'm like, okay, it's not, it doesn't like move in the
Yeah,
same
it
way as
doesn't
the
really.
original.
It doesn't allow you to sympathize with its characters as much as like the first one, because each character in the first movie had like a singular purpose.
Yeah,
You got Annie. She's sort of the brains, the smart ass, but she still gets hers.
yeah,
Linda's just more of the horn dog with her
yeah,
boyfriend.
yeah.
So
The
we have
ditzy
that
horn dog.
cliche.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then you got Laurie, she's the clueless one that so happens to be the final girl that manages to escape. And each one has an archetype. You got Dr. Loomis, who's the hero of the day,
yeah,
that doesn't really put anything past him other than the fact that Michael's a human being, but he
yeah,
still wants to believe that he's not.
yeah. And I think the thing that the second one, uh, there's an advantage and a disadvantage to like the character switches in this is that Lori gets sidelined for a lot of it by being just in a hospital bed. Uh, so
Well,
like that girl that we
yeah,
met.
we all saw kills at one point.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, well,
She got sidelined there too.
that girl that we meet in the first one, she's like a far cry from who that is, and like
Mhm.
I guess the advantage is that it takes place on the same night. She would be like traumatized and like really screwed up after what
Mhm.
happened, so like she wouldn't be that strong girl that we meet, but like you kind of miss that a little bit. But the
Yeah.
advantage is that they beef up Donald Pleasance's role in the second one, and he has a lot more
Mhm.
to do, and like that kind of sets the tone for like what he'll be for the franchise and like that movie, and then 4, 5, and 6 a little bit as well. Like he becomes like uh the star basically almost of this kind of like explaining exposition. Uh
Yeah. Because even if you notice, because in the first one, him and Jamie Lee Curtis shared the starring credits, but in the second one, it just says Donald Pleasance in, and then Halloween 2, and
yeah,
then they present Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm like,
and it's crazy to think that they don't have, like, in the first one they have one scene together at the end, and then the
that's
second one they
true.
only have like the stuff at the end together too. They don't really do a lot together at all. But it's so weird because they're so synonymous with those first two movies,
Yeah,
but they don't
definitely.
interact really at all. But yeah, I mean, like you said, after Halloween 2, John Carpenter wanted to be done with it. And like I will say this, I avoided Halloween 3 for a long time just as a kid because I was told that like, well, he's not even in it, so what's the point of watching it? And I would always
Well,
skip
he is in it for like 2 seconds on
Oh yeah,
TV.
they showed I mean, they were being meta before meta was like a thing. They were they have like a movie trailer for or a TV spot for Halloween playing in the bar that like one of the characters is at, and like uh I will say this: I saw Halloween 3 late in the game. I didn't like it when I first saw it because I was like, this is ridiculous. It's not Halloween. But then I was writing for a site
Mhm.
called Real Talking, and the guy who ran it, Dave, he was a big Halloween 3 fan just because he's like, if you take the Halloween name off of it and just call it Season of the Witch and like say it's not a part of the franchise, just watch it as like a standalone movie. It's
As
not
like its
bad.
own, yeah.
Yeah. So
It
then
really isn't. I
yeah,
personally, I personally really enjoy Halloween 3. You know, yes, as part of the franchise, obviously it's not as higher up as like what the majority would be, but it is its own movie. It works on its own, and I actually started to get curious as to what Carpenter had in store after Season of the Witch.
oh yeah,
But you
what
know,
each anthology would like,
given the
yeah, what each movie would be, or what each kind of like Halloween themed movie
yeah,
would be. That would be cool.
because I'm sure you're familiar with him, like, you know, wanting to do a Halloween movie each year,
Yeah,
but as an anthology set of movies where each story is its own thing, has a different approach,
right.
style. Um, it got me curious, and I'm like, well, I wonder why he doesn't do that. Like, I wonder why he hasn't gone back to that idea. And he doesn't even have to call it Halloween. He could call it, you know, Season of the Witch Part Two. I don't know,
Yeah,
or The Witch Strikes Again. You know, something cheesy. Like, I don't know.
yeah,
But I always got curious as to why it never got revisited, and I'm just assuming because of the fan reception, critics' reception, and you know how poorly
yeah,
received it was since there was no Michael Myers. But yeah, I mean, I think it works perfectly on its own. You know, you've got like the maniacal, you know, CEO guy who just wants to hurt everybody with
yeah.
masks. And
Small
there's
children.
I don't think there's anything more outside of the box than that. You know, it's as 80s as you can get as far as a premise goes. You know, that Halloween song that they have in the
Oh,
movie is
the
a little
Silver
catchy.
Shamrock song, it's its own like pop culture phenomenon, I think, at this point. At least with horror fans. Yeah, like you mentioned before, like, since he was like, I'm not gonna do another Halloween movie with Michael Myers, he wanted to do these like anthology a Halloween movie a year with a different premise. I think he could have gotten away with that today. Um, not so much then, I guess, because like I don't like people were already set in their ways with two movies with this one particular villain and these characters, and like I don't even know. I wish I could go. I wish I could be like during that time and see how they promoted it, like how they really drove home like what this movie was going to be. Because it makes it seem
Season of
like
the
because
Witcher.
everyone that saw it then makes it seem like they were just utterly confused. And I would just imagine like there had to be like advertisements and stuff like
Yeah, so the biggest advertisement that I've seen for it was they showed the three different masks, the skull, the witch, and the pumpkin,
okay,
but it focuses mainly on the witch and it slow zooms on the witch and a spider comes out of its mouth and the CGI eyes are like
oh okay,
animated. They open and then it cuts to the title card. Season of the Witch, the night no one comes home. And right then and there, it probably gives the idea that okay, maybe Michael's not going to be in this.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Uh,
I can see why it could cause some confusion because you know you attach the name Halloween 3. Like, where could you possibly go with this now? Michael just died in the second one.
yeah, in a massive explosion, which he should have died in. Uh, including Dr. Loomis, oddly enough, too. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the movie now. I actually think it gets better each time I watch it. And when
Hmm.
I went to the, I think it was the 40th anniversary. They did like this big convention for Halloween in Pasadena where the original movie was shot, and
Nice.
they had a panel for each movie, and the Halloween 3 panel had a ton of people. I would say it had more than like even part two. Uh, the panel did. It's a huge fan favorite now, which is
It is now.
kind of funny. I think like it Halloween Ends is kind of destined for that kind of
Halloween Ends is gonna get that same treatment. Just wait and see.
yeah. I
You
think
know,
that's it's what's in
right now
store for
everyone's
it.
just pissed. Right
Yeah,
now
and
everyone's just pissed. Like spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't seen Halloween Ends, but yes, he dies. They finally had the balls to kill him off.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever. Like we've been wanting to see this happen for a long time because it happens once in Halloween 2. Okay, but then they retcon that and they
And
say we're gonna
H2O
make a
they
new
re-
set of
H2O they retcon it too.
yeah. That was a little silly. I'm like, okay, you could have just put the final nail in the coffin, but why would you pull the whole? Oh, it wasn't even him.
Yeah, it's silly.
I've heard that was actually Kevin Williamson's idea.
Oh, why? Oh God.
I don't know. I don't
uh,
know that.
he
I don't
writes
know
a
if
he
he
writes a
like he didn't
perfectly
write.
good treatment for like a return to the franchise, and then wants to do that.
Yeah, apparently that was his idea. That it wasn't even Michael in the end. That it was just someone else, and that's why they went on and made Resurrection, given the success rate of H2O. And I'm just like, you wrote one of the you wrote yeah, like you wrote one of the greatest treatments or one of the best scripts for what is considered one of the best slasher movies of all time, and then you give us one of the worst ideas of all
Yeah,
time.
ever. Yeah. Because I mean, he was
You know,
he was part of the. I mean, there was a lot with H2O. Like I know Jamie Lee Curtis was interested in revisiting it because would be 20 years later. Like, what would it be like to kind of see where this character was at 20 years later? She approached John
mhm.
Carpenter. John Carpenter didn't want to do it. Um, he said like basically like good luck, but I don't. He very anti Halloween. I mean, I don't want to say anti Halloween because I mean I'm sure he loves what that first movie did for him, but like I think the Halloween franchise he was very anti that.
Yeah, like he was just one and done about it, and which is respectable. I mean, not
Yeah,
everyone wants to milk their own, premise.
right.
At the time, yeah, Michael Myers was bankable, but John Carpenter didn't seem to think that way about it.
Yeah,
He wasn't in it for the money. He was just in it, because he wanted to make something for the audience.
right.
A treat, if you will. And I mean, if you look at his filmography from then on, I mean, he's made a lot of great things all throughout the 80s, throughout the
Yeah,
90s. Then he just disappeared in the 2000s, made that one movie with Amber Heard in 2010.
yeah. The
And
oh,
yeah,
the ward, right? It's like isn't it called the ward? I think it's the ward.
I appreciated the twist, but it's Amber Heard. Can't really lead a
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. Um. So, and I love the ending of Halloween 3. I think that it sits pretty well. It's like pretty chilling that they can't. He
Like,
thinks he's
stop
gonna
it.
get all. He thinks he's gonna get all the broadcasts turned off, and then like that
Hmm.
one last one isn't. So like for all his work, it's gonna happen. What their
Yeah,
plan's gonna go through, and like I appreciate like horror movies that are willing to have like dark endings like that because some don't. And considering that we know what will happen because we saw what happens to the kid who watches it when they're wearing the mask, like so we're
mhm.
imagining on Halloween night, like all these kids sitting around TV watching this, and that is what's uh going to happen to them in the end.
This
And
is
that's
why I've
pretty
always wanted a sequel to that because I just wanted to see like the aftermath. I wanted to see a movie like, hey, what comes next after we see like possibly millions of children dying in front of their TV and parents watching helplessly as snakes crawl out,
right.
out of their masks. Like I've always wanted to just see like like a follow up sort of, not so much like a long sequel that tries to expand on itself, but I just wanted to see a continuation of what if, you
Right.
know.
And
Because what,
kudos
what
to
if that broadcast, finally decided to shut off the TV? We don't know that
yeah, we
because
don't
it
know.
just
Yeah,
cuts to him. He just cuts to him screaming and stop it, and it cuts to that, and it ends. And
exactly.
you never know for sure if the broadcast gets shut down or not. So I've always just wanted to see, like, did they really? Did they not?
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
And like and also I mean John Carpenter wrote it, but kudos to Tommy Lee Wallace who stepped up as a director on this too. He worked
Yeah.
on the other two movies with Carpenter. And I during that convention he talked about how like he was disappointed by the reception of it at the time, but he is really happy that it kind of found its audience eventually.
Yeah.
And like so many people, like honestly a lot of people consider it like, even if they don't really consider it part of like the franchise, it is, they think it's a really solid 80s like sci-fi ish horror movie.
Yeah, it,
That they
it is though. It
Yeah,
really is. Like like you and I said, it just works on its own.
yeah,
You just take the name away, and it's its own movie, and I think that's what
yeah.
makes it really special.
No, for me it was just like childhood stubbornness. Like I don't want to watch one without Michael Myers in it. So I was like, there was that.
Well, when I was a kid, when I finally watched it as a kid, I'm just like, well, where the hell's Michael?
Yeah,
But I
exactly.
watched it. I watched it a couple more times after that throughout, and I started to like it more. I grew an attachment to it, and I'm like, yeah, this is actually really good. It's a
Yep,
little cheesy, it's a little funny, but I don't mind
yep.
it.
So with Halloween 4 and 5, we get introduced to Jamie Lloyd, played by Danielle Harris, who I think for a lot of horror fans, even as a small child, uh, kind of achieve instant like horror movie icon status very young. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, you know, Halloween 3 didn't work financially, so Mustafa Akkad was like, well, we're gonna bring back who was in charge of like the franchise, and we're gonna bring back Michael Myers. Uh, the fourth one for me when I was younger, and it still kind of was like a fan favorite. I think I really watched that sequel the most growing up a bit, and I really it's weird because it doesn't really have like the totally the same style as like the first two movies. But I think what Dwight Little does he does create some kind of atmosphere in it that that really works in its own way. That makes it
Yeah,
better. That makes it better than like the fourth entry of like a horror movie franchise. Like I feel
it
like he
just
tried to do what Carpenter did with like building more suspense. And I mean, there is a lot of violence, especially towards the end. But like, I feel like he tried to like make it more subtle and like build up to, like, I feel like you build up to that stuff at the house where like he's finally inside and Rachel realizes it, all the way up to that whole like chase scene up on the roof. Like you're
mhm.
building up to that kind of moment, and he does a really good job of like doing that in that
I
movie.
think I think what worked for Halloween 4, at least in my opinion, was just how cold it was.
Yeah,
It was a very cold movie. It
yeah,
it, it didn't feel like it had like the heart of 1 and 2, which is fine, because I think that was the intention there, is to create a lot more discomfort rather than fun. Like, yeah,
right.
we got Michael Myers back, but I just want you to like they wanted to let us know, like make it very clear, like he's just super cold in this trilogy, or we didn't even know it was. I don't even think people knew it was going to be a trilogy back then,
At that point, yeah,
but with Halloween 4, like I said, it just feels cold. It feels like a Halloween movie.
yeah,
And yeah, it's like you say, yeah, it takes the style of Carpenter, it builds up to like its big finale. But I like the way it just opens within those first 10 minutes. It established itself very well,
yeah.
just in that hospital. I mean, just in the hospital, the ambulance scene alone was, pretty gnarly.
Thumb through the
He
head.
just crushes that guy's skull. And I'm just like, oh, hello.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, at that point, he's more like Jason esque in the fourth one, where he's just like strong and like seems unstoppable, and that like
Right.
clearly seems like less of a man by the time you get reintroduced to him in the fourth one. Uh,
Hmm.
and of course, we get Donald Pleasance back, who is also very. I think this is like one of my favorite ones with him in it. 'Cause I think he does a good job of like bringing that character back, and then also kind of interacting. Like we've only seen him really interact with uh the people in the first two movies, but like I think he does a good job of integrating himself into the stuff with the new sheriff, and like even
Hmm.
even like because he has a bit more with Jamie than like he did with Laurie in those first two movies.
Yeah.
um I also think the characters in this movie are very likable. I mean, of course I like Jamie. Rachel is probably an underrated final girl. I think like she's
He very much is. And then they
really good.
wasted her in 5.
Ellie Cornell's really good in this. Yeah. uh Brady's an asshole, but at least he like kind of shows up before he dies. Like he kind of redeems himself for like two timing Rachel with the sheriff's daughter. So like there's that.
I just didn't like what they did with Brady's character. I thought he'd be a little smarter than to stand there reloading a gun.
The real of the guy. You know what? It is stupid, but like they do make it a cool like. A lot of people complain about like slasher movies where like the killer's just walking while they're all trying to like get situated. But like
Hmm.
that whole scene where like he's trying to reload the gun and they're begging him to like go with them, and you're watching Michael just walk up slow. Like it still works though. Like I like the whole like build up to it. I mean, it is stupid that he just didn't go with them, or like he didn't at least try to like I don't know. Yeah, I feel like he would be a bit smarter, but
I thought he would just at least like take a few more steps back. I mean, you see someone walking towards you, you're reloading the gun, I get it, but if you know you're taking too long reloading the gun, you might as well just like, start walking.
Yeah,
Like
and then
maybe take a few
that
more steps,
yeah,
go up one more flight of stairs, you might have an advantage. But
exactly. And then the rooftop sequence is a really good chase scene just in general. Like it's a
oh
really
yeah,
well done like chase sequence, and like all that, like the last like even the last 15 minutes of that movie, or like the stuff on the truck is really good. I don't know
yeah.
how he got on the truck. They don't really explain that.
No, yeah, no, they really don't.
Was he hiding
But
underneath it, like while
I
they
think I
before they
think
took
I
off?
think they took the I think at that point they took the Jason theory that Michael teleports.
Teleports everywhere. And I love there's all this commotion, like him throwing everyone off, and then like the driver's kind of like, I think something's going on back there, and then everyone else is just kind of sitting like they don't know at all. But then of course
Yeah,
Rachel again proving how badass she is. She takes the reins and like you know gets him off the car and
throws his
like
ass out of the truck.
yeah, it's awesome. And the end of that movie, why I love Halloween 4 is like, and it sucks that Halloween 5 doesn't do more with this or anything with it. Um,
It
the
potentially
whole
says that Jamie could be a killer, or
that
that
whole like,
that
and
she
it's
is
such a
related to
really
him.
cool dark ending to have it be like she touched him and then that got passed on to her. They
Hmm.
actually they really do this with Halloween Ends. I mean, I feel like they kind of like really dealt with that in a way where it's like, oh, like this evil is kind of contagious, that kind of thing. Um,
Hmm.
and that last image of her wearing like what is basically his costume from like the first movie, after
Yeah,
she's like stabbed her like foster mother, like it's such a cool ending. Again, like it reminds me of Halloween 3. Like the ending's very bleak. Like they've gone through all this stuff, and now this girl that like they've been trying to save the entire movie is like
the
just like
psycho.
her uncle. Yeah. And like unfortunately Halloween 5, I don't know why they didn't do that. I think it was a I think on the Blu-ray they talked about how like realistically they weren't gonna make like a 19-year-old like a serial killer. And then they needed Michael Myers to be there, but like it just seems like such a wasted opportunity to not have expanded on that a bit
Oh
in
yeah,
the fifth movie. Because the fifth movie is a mess. Like I don't I love certain scenes. Like again, I think the last 15,
it's
20 minutes or so
actually
like really move,
yeah.
but like for the most part it's a big mess. And of course they introduced the Man in Black there, and then there's like a that gets explored more in the sixth movie. And I personally don't know, I get lost when I start talking about the Thorn stuff, which I think they set up in part 5, and like try to like really expand on in part 6. I remember being like, even like as a teenager and stuff, being like confused, like what's going on in 5, like who's this other dude what's up with this dude in black that
Hmm.
they don't really explain anything about. um the characters aren't, I mean, I hate that they get rid of Rachel. I guess they had to because we get Tina, and I don't hate Tina the way everyone else hates Tina. I Tina's
Yeah,
fine.
but she was the obvious replacement for Rachel, and it was just kind of. I think that's why a lot of people were pissed with Tina, is that she felt like the replacement, and
Yeah,
that's probably why she gets all the hate. I don't think she's a particularly bad character. She can be annoying, but
she can't be,
she's
and
not.
and she's another one
She's
that
not
redeems
terrible.
herself. She redeems herself like before she dies. Like she tries to protect Jamie. Like you can tell that she really cares about Jamie. That much is
Hmm.
clear. And but I guess like if we're talking about fierce female protectors of Jamie Lloyd, I guess everyone would be like, we rather have Rachel um
Yeah.
over. And I guess like Ellie Cornell said originally she's supposed to get scissors down the throat, and she was like, no, we're not doing that. That is, I don't want to go out that way. She didn't want to go out anyway. She thought the way they got rid of her was pretty shitty.
Yeah, you see, that's actually why Halloween 5 is one of my less favorite Halloweens. As a kid, it was one of my favorites, but even at that point, I still preferred 4 over 5.
Yeah.
But I just didn't appreciate how I want to say it's muddled. Like it's super like what the fuck? Like why did you take what you did in Halloween 4 and somehow manage to not do it right in the fifth one?
Yeah.
Because in the fifth one they practically just redid Halloween 4 except
Yeah.
with the ending, where they introduced a new character and established like, okay, this is kind of weird, like what's going on now? But I don't know. I really wish they would have done that thing with Jamie. It's funny because in Halloween 2018, they kind of teased that with Allison.
Yeah, they do. They do.
So yeah, after that whole thing with Halloween 4 about, Jamie killing trying to kill her stepmother or her foster mother, they kind of teased that whole evil thing with Halloween 2018. And this was before we even knew we were gonna get sequels. But the way Allison just holds onto the knife at the end of 2018,
Yeah.
it could indicate like, okay, like, what's going on there? Is she just being protective and she's holding the knife for that reason?
Yeah.
Or
Or is this
is
happening to
she
her?
like,
Evil.
yeah, is this happening to her too? This whole like, she's a victim now, but that's what happened with Jamie. She was the victim getting chased this whole time, and that, after she touched, Michael, it just did that. And when you think about it, Allison, has her plenty of encounters directly with Michael, and even at the end, she slices his hand or knocks him
Yeah.
over or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, that was like, okay, are they doing the same thing they did with 4 at this point, or what's going on? And then Kills just goes into the whole, oh, well, Michael's alive, gets revenge, which is fine. I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't
but
mind it
yeah,
either.
like I said, Halloween 5, it was a wasted opportunity. They could have done a lot of things with that Thorn trilogy instead of just, making rinse wash repeat slashers. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the directors and writers' fault. Maybe the studio didn't want the way they wanted it to go. Because I have a feeling that if, 5 was anything like the producer's cut for 6, I think we would have had a really solid trilogy on our hands, and it
So
could have gone
what
in so many
confuses me
directions with it.
even now is like five set that stuff up with like the man in black and then the symbol, but
Uh-huh.
they probably didn't even know when they made five what that all was, right? They're just kind of like, did they like the filmmakers know? And then like when then they would go to do six, I wonder when they went to do six, they were like, all right, we gotta
Now
kind
we
of
got to
just
touch on that.
touch up on what that is. Like I feel like they just set these kind of plot threads up in five and we're like, hey, if we make another one, like cool, like like
Yeah.
uh, I think they
And
just want to.
it took them what, 7 years, 5, 6 years to make the next one.
Yeah, and at that point, everyone probably forgot. Like I don't even people remembered Halloween Five. Like
Hmm.
after all right, what happened in it? I will say that Danielle Harris is really good in it. I mean, like even like the first part where she can't talk, she's like
Yeah.
mute. Donald Pleasance is good in it too. I love how he's so over that he's really rough with her, where he's like, okay, you just need like I can't deal with you
He's like,
anymore. I know you
he
know.
does a really good he does a really good job of playing the crotchety old man that
Yeah, he's just not
he's just so up to here. He's like, you know what, cut the bullshit, we need to get straight to business. This
yeah,
guy's still out there and
he's
you're
not
not,
here.
helping.
He's not here for her potential mental illness. He's not here for her not being able to talk. He's just like, yo, I'm not here
Where's
for your
Michael?
tears. Yeah, he has no like sympathy. But I love hit like I mean, he's never been bad at any of these. I don't think I liked his
Mhm.
stuff, and I think it has really good sequences. Like I love the chasing with the car, and like knowing that like Danielle Harris did that herself, like because this was like 1989 on a not big budget horror movie. She was like, that would
Mhm.
not fly today to have her run in front of a, even though like Don Shanks, who played Michael Myers in the fifth one, was an experienced stunt
Yeah.
person. He knew how to drive. She was like, she turned 10 or 11 on part five. So you had like a young girl like running in front of a car, and then they have a behind the scenes video thing where she falls, like, and it's not
Mhm.
planned. Like she falls, and he has to stop like right away to not hit her. I mean, kudos to her for doing it. It's really her, and it's real, and that probably makes the scene more like frightening for me because like it's
Genuine. Yeah.
her. And I also love the laundry shoot sequence. I thought it was really good. It's really
Yeah, that
claustrophobic
was
and
actually
scary, and
that.
like
Yeah, despite it's like, what I don't like about the movie, there are some pretty solid moments. So yeah, the laundry shoot's one of them. The car chase was pretty fun too. The whole the I forgot his name's Michael. There's a guy named Michael in that movie, to make things even more confusing.
oh yeah,
Tina's
yeah.
boyfriend. I
Oh,
like
is
when
that
he gets
the
that,
blonde? Is that the
that.
blonde girl's? Is that the blonde girl's boyfriend, or is the other guy? The other guy who gets the thing in the face, who is Tina's boyfriend.
I believe it was Tina's,
Tina's.
because
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. A lot of people.
because the blonde had her boyfriend, but they died in the barn, the
The
both of them.
barn. Yeah. She had the goofy boyfriend, and the one that like she was like too pretty for.
Hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, it's another movie that's kind of not littered with like a bunch of side characters you don't like, but I can get behind Tina. The other people I didn't really they don't really do much
Yeah, they're just
for me at
throwaway
all.
characters, and it was
They're
pretty
just there.
obvious. But
Um, I mean, I guess like the one guy dies cool with the pitchfork through the back.
I just
Uh,
like the way Tina's boyfriend dies. He just gets that thing to his face, and
yeah, and
it
it's like
was pretty.
shaking on the ground.
Yeah,
And then you get
I
the
thought it
whole
was a
like,
pretty. I thought it
yeah,
was a pretty clever kill for like what the '80s had. I thought it was a pretty like like oh shit, like that just happened,
yeah,
and there was no music, nothing. It was just pure like impact and reaction,
yeah.
and just him hitting the ground. And I thought that was pretty cool.
And then you get that goofy stuff with Tina in the car with who she thinks is her boyfriend. And I like,
The
yeah, yeah.
mask.
Yo, I have friends that actually think that scene is kind of creepy and scary because like there's a moment where she kisses him and you
Hmm.
can see his eyes like move over to her, like kind of like frustrated. Like it's creepy
Like
the way he looks at her.
he's just
Um,
kind of like, dude, stop.
yeah, but the situation is so, and he's like gripping the steering wheel. It's the situation is so ridiculous that it's hard for me to think it's creepy. I know, but I have friends that actually think that scene, that whole sequence is really good.
I mean, it is pretty on edge. I mean, he could have just as easily just swung at the knife at her at that point and just
Yeah,
killed her
yeah,
in the car.
yeah,
But I don't know why he didn't. Like, he had every opportunity, but I guess he wanted to wait until, Tina decided to step up and be heroic.
yeah. I
But
guess
we didn't
so.
know that.
So then in like the '90s, we get the Curse of Michael Myers, and they have to like kind of uh try to explain all this stuff that happens in part five at the end, like what happened to Jamie, uh, what's with the symbol, and what's with the dude
Yeah.
in black. Um, and they go through this whole like cult storyline, and there's this whole big deal about like different. I remember like wanting the producer's cut so bad because everyone was saying how much of a better movie it was. And I remember like I had friends that had bootleg versions of it, but it was so I couldn't even you couldn't even watch it because it
Yeah,
was just so.
I think that bootleg version was actually on YouTube, and that's how I watched it.
Yeah,
I got past the whole like poor quality of it. I'm like, yeah, this is probably as good as it's gonna get for right now.
yeah.
Then ironically, they made a Blu-ray of it not too long ago, and I'm like,
Yeah, they put it in the box set, which
oh, that's
I
right.
appreciate it
Right.
because like I mean it's a more coherent movie for sure. Like
It is.
it fills in like some of the because there are a lot of holes in part six and it's just like you can
Yeah,
tell that it's like cut to death. Like
I can see why they might have not wanted to release the producer's cut at the time, but in my head, I'm just thinking, well, why would you think it was a good idea to release the theatrical cut? It
yeah,
felt
because it's
like an
not good.
unfinished movie. It just felt like an unfinished movie, especially the way it ends too, with Donald Pleasance dying off screen,
Yeah, yeah,
or
it's
what we
yeah.
think is him dying off
Screaming,
screen.
yeah.
And it just felt like a big insult to his character and his legacy, no less, because he actually passed away before this movie was even released. And I
Before it
think,
came out, yeah.
yeah, and luckily, I mean, the producer cut, he filmed the scenes for that version entirely. And because they cut all that, his scream off screen was from the producer's cut, if you've seen it,
Yeah.
but there's context to it. However, in the theatrical cut, I mean, the way they just, made it seem like, oh, he died off screen, that's the end for Dr. Loomis. I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Even to this day, I'm just like, why would you think that was a good idea for someone as beloved as he was?
To do
And
that,
that's the way you're gonna send him off? Like, that's so
yeah.
fucking stupid.
And you know what? And they, in their own way, they did this with Danielle Harris on this one because she's replaced
That
by
too. She gets recast.
yeah, she
And
gets
I mean,
replaced
while
by
the actress
JC.
plays a
I feel bad for JC Brandy because I think she got a lot of shit for replacing her, even though she was just an
I thought she
actress
did a
taking
fine
a
job.
job. Yeah, she
I
was an
thought she
actress
was.
taking a job.
I thought she did a fine job. Obviously, it wasn't Danielle Harris, which obviously she probably couldn't capture that, which is probably one of the reasons she got a lot of hate. But all on her own, I thought she did a solid job playing Jamie Lloyd. I
Yeah,
just thought it was silly that they recasted her. I mean,
yeah,
maybe I guess if you think about the time jump, there could have been a time jump, and Danielle Harris wasn't really old enough.
yeah.
But even Danielle Harris didn't want to come back for this because when she found out that she was getting killed off like nothing, she
She
just
hated
said, "No,
it.
fuck you, I'm not coming back."
Yeah, she hated it, and like, and the thing was, she was like, if that's going to be the case, then like, kind of pay me my worth a little bit. Yeah, I guess in her case, she was like, if you're going to kill me like that, you got to pay me my worth, and they didn't even want to do that.
Yeah, no,
'Cause this is Dimension Films at this point, so this is like
that's why that's probably part of the reason why they took so long to because I think the Halloween rights were bouncing around a lot.
yeah.
And I think part of the reason they took so long too is because Halloween 5 didn't do as good at the box office as say
It
4 did.
bombed. It bombed. I mean Halloween 4
I
didn't
think
make a ton of money, but I think what it gets respect for is that it was number one for 2 weeks in a row. when it
Yeah.
came out, and it was, I think, for the time and it being the fourth one, it was generally well received when it
Hmm.
came out. But then like they rushed five. Rough five came out like a year. I mean, almost a little less than a week from a year later.
It basically had the Matrix Revolutions Reloaded treatment where they came
Yeah,
out with almost the same year. I just thought that was a little like,
yeah. I'm trying to think
but
of what I mean, I know you talked about you like the music in part six. I think the score is kind of, I like the rock, like kind of.
yeah, and I think that's what does it for me a lot for the score is that it has like that 90s, grungy metal twist
Yeah,
to it. And I personally love it, but amongst some of the things that I like about the movie, I mean, I know I don't love the movie entirely. I think it's because it's just more of a guilty pleasure for me, especially
yeah.
since it was one of the ones I watched a lot growing up. Not only that, I think it's actually one of the scariest Halloweens that we've gotten. I mean, it's definitely the darkest. You know, Michael just feels, what is it, George P. Wilbur that plays Michael in this one?
Yeah, this was his second
He's a
time because he did it in the fourth
he's a
one and
giant
then yeah.
brute. He's just this giant brute walking around slowly, no less. So he captures that essence that Dick Warlock did in Halloween 2 for me. And the mask. I really love the mask in this one. I think it's actually one of the scarier
Better
masks.
ones.
Supposedly it's an aged version of Halloween 5's mask, which I think is bullshit because they look like two completely different things.
Halloween
But
Five man is awful. I hate
no,
the
Halloween 5 mask is my least favorite.
I hate the slick back hair and like the yeah, it's like really bad.
The horse face. It's the horse face for me. Why
Yeah,
the
like because
fuck is the thing so long?
people give shit to the Halloween four mask, and I mean
What
I
is the
guess I
Halloween
see
4 mask?
I guess because the eyes are kind of tiny and like I mean, but I think it's still kind of creepy in its own right.
It's because it's a blank face.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a blank face, and I
And
think
in
that's
certain
what really
shots, it
works for
looks
me.
pretty creepy in certain shots. Like when Jamie has that dream, like after the whole ambulance sequence, and like he's at the
Hmm.
door. I think it looks good in that shot. There is that whole blunder with the blonde hair. I know we already talked about part four, but he has blonde
Yeah.
hair in the school, and like yeah, that's where you can tell you worked on a low budget horror movie. Like, oh, we should probably go back and fix that. Like, no, we don't have enough money to reshoot that. Like, it's like whatever. Um, but yeah, I agree. The part six mask isn't that bad. I like Paul Rudd. I think he was a good Tommy Doyle. Like it's, I think that was his first movie.
Actually, yeah, I was gonna say that's actually one of his earliest
Yeah,
roles, if
I
not
think
one of his
he
first ones.
actually at the convention we went to, and I forget the girl who plays Kara's friend, but she mentioned talking to Paul Rudd, and he's reading this script, and she's like, "Oh, what is it?" And he's like, "Oh, it's for this movie called Clueless." He had gotten it like while he was filming Halloween 6. And like
Hmm.
he let her read some of it, and he was like, "Oh, do you think this is gonna be good?" She's like, "Yeah, you need to like go for it." Like, so she said that he was like a really good guy the entire time. And you know what? He's not anti. He doesn't talk anti Halloween 6. Like he has mentioned like if he had time, he would go to the conventions and like talk to Halloween
Hmm.
fans. Like, I mean, it's no secret he's a big star now. Like he's a huge star
Batman.
now. But like, but even in like other interviews, he's never been like, "Oh, I hated doing that movie," or like
Hmm.
anything like that. He's been like completely. I'm sure he
Well,
knows
I
that the
think
movie's not great, but like he's respectful of like the people who made it, and like it was his first thing. So
because I don't think a lot of people had, or any of the actors or actresses had an issue making the movie. If
oh
anything, I mean, the thing about Halloween movies is that they always look so fun to make,
yeah,
and good or bad, in the end, I think all the cast and crew had a great time making these. And it's a Halloween movie, and I'm sure Paul Rudd, at the time, he was gonna take it. Of course, I'm gonna be in a
yeah.
horror movie.
You
Everyone
know,
wanted to be in a horror
I
movie
think
at the
all
time.
involved like enjoyed making it. They all agree that like what happened behind the scenes with like Dimension getting involved and like changing stuff, like that became like the biggest issue for everyone working on it. It wasn't the movie they
Mhm.
like signed up for, and they are like reshooting all this stuff, like cutting things, and like that was like their main problem with it. Shooting the actual movie
Yeah.
they enjoyed. But that that was the the early stages of Dimension Films and the Weinsteins. Like they were bullies, and that's how they were. They were just like that. They controlled a lot of their projects, and like now it's interesting because you go from like Curse of Michael Myers, and then like we said, we have Jamie Lee Curtis who comes up with this idea to like come back 20 years later. John Carpenter doesn't want to do it, but Kevin Williamson's hot at the time because he has done Scream, and he has done I Know What You Did Last Summer, and
Mm-hmm.
he like basically responsible for like bringing back the uh slasher movie thing in the 90s, the late 90s. So he writes a treatment just for Halloween H2O. And they kind of take that treatment of like where Laurie would be like 20 years after Halloween 2. And I mean, I remember being super excited for it because like, of course, it's like you're bringing back this main character from like the first two movies, and this is someone that even like I have my loyalties are so weird sometimes, because I love the Laurie Strode stuff, like no matter what timeline it's in, whether it's like 1, 2, H2O Resurrection, or if it's 2018 Kills, and like I like her story, but I also also as a horror fan, I appreciate what Danielle Harris brought to it in 4 and 5. But Jamie Lee Curtis is like the original. She's Laurie Strode. She's from the first movie, so it's exciting to have her back. And also, it's this weird like DNA of like you're bringing back this thing that was so big back then, but then you're also mixing it with the DNA of like this new wave of like late 90s like slasher movies. At the time, I was super excited about that whole combination. It's funny in retrospect. I think even though I like H2O, I think it is in a constant battle with itself of being like a Halloween movie or a Scream movie, and like and not to say that either one is bad. I mean, Scream's good, right? So like that there was a reason why that all worked. I just think that like the overall like it's hard to kind of like those two styles don't necessarily go together. But like I still think they made it work, and it was cool to see Jamie Lee Curtis back. I love the cast for this one. Like even the side characters who are there to just get bumped off. I think they're all fun.
They all have their own. You could tell like Kevin Williamson was involved with this somehow, because
Michelle Williams was on Dawson's Creek at the time. I'm sure that had a lot to do with her being involved in it. Of course, we get Josh Hartnett. This was his first movie, and he quickly did The Faculty right after this. Josh Hartnett and his very special haircut.
Love the haircut.
Joey Lynn O'Keefe played the girl, the female best friend. Adam Hamburg played her boyfriend. Another circumstance where I'm like, that girl's too pretty to be with that guy, but like whatever, it works for. I mean, and then like
you got LL Cool J,
and then like this is when like I didn't pay attention to this until back then, but I remember reading something where they were like, you cast someone like LL Cool J because you want the urban audience, and I was like, I didn't even think about that. That's why he's there. I mean, like it's cool that he's there, but like the whole process, the marketing, you're like, yo, we need someone that attracts like the African American audience. Like who's gonna like they want to see this too. So you put LL Cool J in it, and like it was perfect because LL Cool J was still like not like he's not big still. He's still in a like hit TV show, but like then like it was just like it was cool to have like a rapper in your horror movie then. And you know what, in it just enough. Like he's in it just enough for some good comic relief. I love this stuff where he's reading his like lurid like romance novel to his like girlfriend or wife over the phone. Like that stuff is really funny. And I also like the of course they touch on this more in like the Gordon Green trilogy, but like the idea of like what those events would do to her, how they would affect her 20 years later, the fact that she would go to the lengths of like faking her death so like she could be someone else, so like he couldn't find her anymore. I thought that stuff was handled pretty well in a movie that's really short. I think it's only an hour and 28 minutes when I looked, and like it has a lot.
I think it's one of the shortest ones.
Yeah, it has a lot to do in a short amount of time, but I think it does its job. And of course, the end.
I think it keeps it simple enough to make it believable.
Yeah,
but because even in the opening, you're just like, you even get Joseph Gordon-Levitt for like a few seconds.
Yeah, I forgot to even mention him. Yeah, he was a fairly decent name at that time. Third Rock from the Sun. Like, yeah, all right, we're gonna bump him off.
Yeah, this is where he was like still starting out, and when I first watched it, I didn't even know it was him until I like watched it again not too long ago, and I'm just like, is that fucking Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
You know what? His name was
And
big enough to put on the poster at the time, even though he's not on the
yeah,
poster. His name is on the poster.
oh, that's right. That
Yeah.
is right. I think that's how maybe that's how I found out too. I'm like, there's no way he's in the movie. I'm like, where the fuck was he in the movie? And he turns out
Yeah.
he's one of the skater kids from the beginning.
Like,
Oh no, he's
oh.
a hockey kid. He's a hockey kid.
But yeah,
But
yeah, I like the opening too. The opening's really good, actually. I think it kind of sets up the movie really well, and it's cool to get Nancy Stevens back as like the nurse from like the first two movies.
Marion,
You
yeah.
know, yeah, it's cool that they've been able to bring her back across different timelines. So good for good for
Oh yeah.
Nancy Stevens.
I just wish that I wish her death was a little more fleshed out in Halloween Kills. I wanted her to have a little bit more of a substance to
an
it.
impact.
But but if you notice, she actually dies a similar way because she gets her throat slit also
Yeah,
when she's being hung from the swings.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's kind of the homage to her death in H2O. So I always
yeah,
thought that was neat.
yeah. And I like the opening where they're. I mean, another actor, of course, is voicing Donald Pleasant's Dr. Loomis speech from like the original
Hmm.
movie. But I like that. That's how they open it with him talking over like the opening credits
Mhm.
and cool. It's cool to hear the Halloween theme because we barely hear any Halloween music in H2O because it's mostly replaced with like music from Scream.
Scream, yeah. It was all the throwaway tracks from the studio. They're like, here, you gotta
Yeah,
use
John Ottman said he made a very elegant Halloween score. For whatever reason, they replaced it mostly with score from Scream.
I mean, if it would have been anything like that opening theme, I would have loved to hear that because I
Yeah,
honestly
it's
think
more
that
like it almost sounds like it's like more of an orchestra like kind of thing in the
yeah,
beginning.
it
Yeah,
is. I thought that was really cool. Like, oh, they're actually making like a reprise of sorts for this song, and I thought, okay, this is cool. And
yeah,
then the rest of it, yeah, like you say, it's just the Scream soundtrack. I'm like, oh,
yeah. Like I feel like you know what, and it's a good chase scene. The chase scene with Molly and John with Josh Hartnett. That
yeah.
chase scene where they're running and then like she drops the keys outside the gate and she can't get them in time before he grabs them. That
And then
chase
we
scene is
see like
good, but
three
I
different
always
masks.
imagine what that chase scene would have sounded like with the actual like Halloween music attached to it and not just like
Yeah,
the track from Scream. Probably would have been a lot better. And then there's also the whole issue with the mask, right? The mask changes like multiple times, and
like
that even
four
that
different times.
in that one scene alone.
So they have like the title mask, or like
Yeah,
the one we see most frequently. They have the KMB mask or whatever it's called, which is the more like fake looking one.
yeah,
And then they also brought back the Halloween 6 mask, which you
yeah.
can actually see a few times
It's in the
throughout.
opening,
And
right?
yeah, so the opening has it, and there's a few other scenes throughout the movie where you can see it. And I think one of them is actually during the keys scene. And then the infamous CGI mask, which I don't know why the fuck they thought that was a good idea, but
Oh yeah, that's when that's when the kid sees him in the kitchen, and yeah, it's really bad.
yeah. And
It's really
he's
bad.
all, hello.
Hello.
Like,
Yeah,
I love his reaction. He's not even freaked out or he's like scared, like shitless. He's like, what the fuck? But he's just like, hi.
yeah. And by the way, I don't think Chris Duran played Michael Myers in this. I don't think he's particularly bad. I think he's a victim of like a really shitty mask job more than anything. He does some like
Yeah.
movements. He does some movements in this I think are kind of cool. Like where they're like when she's throwing the knives after she takes the drawer out, she's throwing the knives at him. He just does one of these things, like kind of quickly like moves his head. And then the scene where he's like flipping the tables when she's like trying to crawl away from him, like
He's like all mad.
yeah, he's
Just
pissed off.
throwing.
Yeah, that whole like sequence with them going at it is really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and of course, this would have been a proper ending to the whole franchise if they wanted to like end it here. I mean, I
Yeah.
heard that like Jamie Lee Curtis though, when she signed up for this, that she kind of knew that like there would be an option for another one, and she wasn't thrilled, but it was the only way to kind of sign up for this and get H2O made, and she kind of chose that being the case, knowing that they could go back and like, and they retcon it poorly. It doesn't make a lick of sense at all.
It doesn't, no.
But
It just
whatever.
doesn't. I mean, I can see how it might have happened. Like, the way they explained the resurrection, I'm like, okay, maybe, but that's if. But
Yeah.
it's like I say, I'm like, why would you do that? Like, this could have easily been, like you say, the final film, Jamie and Michael have well, not Jamie, Laurie and Michael have their final throwdown in the end, end it there. Yes, I get it. He was still alive, wakes up in the van. I can believe that because Michael doesn't die, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then I have him pinned, and then they share that last moment together. I thought it was a beautiful moment, him reaching out to her.
Yeah.
And her trying to like touch his hand too, like this is like that
it's her brother,
the sibling love they have. Yeah, it's like that brother sister thing. I just love how she doesn't fall for it that time. She's like, nope.
And it's like it's almost like she feels sorry for him for a second, and then she remembers all the things that he did to her over like last. Yeah,
she's just like, nope, you're not fucking fooling me this time, and just it's actually funny because somebody in that Halloween group that I'm in made a comment about how heavily edited the TV version for the movie is for H2O.
Oh, really?
And how even the deaths aren't even shown on the TV version.
Yeah.
Most notably the like Michael's death.
Oh,
they don't even show. Yeah, he doesn't get his head chopped off. We just see her swing the axe and make the sound, and it rolls credits.
Oh, that's lame, dude. Really?
It is lame. I'm just like, I mean, I get why they can't show that on TV. You really can't show decapitated heads, but I don't know. I just thought that was kind of silly. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, for anyone that hasn't seen H2O before and watched it on TV, like that's a pretty shitty way to see it for the first time, I guess.
Exactly. So then we get Resurrection. Other than Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is like I hate this movie. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people some people like the opening. I don't like having her get killed off at the beginning, but some people like the opening of the movie.
The opening could have been better if it was the final scene, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that could have worked. And then, of course, this comes out in 2002.
Then it just
yeah.
But even then, it just felt tacked on because I'm like, well, Laurie finally got her, revenge, if you want to call it that,
and her piece
at the end of H2O. And it turns out, it was a bunch of bullshit. Now she's a crazy loony,
which drove her crazy. Like she killed like an innocent dude. Like that's why she's in where she's at. It's a real disservice to her character, I think, to have that be the case. But of course, this movie comes out in 2002, and that's in the almost the height of reality TV, a resurgence of reality TV. So now we get this whole reality TV angle for Resurrection with Dangertainment, run by Busta Rhymes' character. And they went even more urban in Resurrection because they gave you Busta Rhymes, Tyra Banks, and Sean Patrick Thomas. They gave you 3 to bring in the urban audience. I can't. I'm trying to think of nice things to say about it. I
mean, there's some.
I like the lead chick. I like the lead chick. I always forget her name. Bianca. I forgot her last name. I like her.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of. I think part of the stuff where the kids at the Halloween party trying to tell her where to go or trying to help her.
That was pretty okay. Yeah,
it's kind of fine. I'm struggling.
It's because it's really hard to defend this because of how much I loathe the idea of it even being made. Yeah. I know I get it, money, but they even brought back Rick Rosenthal that made Halloween 2 to direct this.
It doesn't even feel like this guy even directed Halloween 2. It's so weird. I guess it's a different time period and all that, but
it
doesn't even seem like he had the same
a completely different movie from him making one of the best ones and then one of the worst ones, and I'm like, huh. But
this garbage made money. It made a decent amount of money when it came out. Not H2O money, but decent amount of money. And I was so shocked when I saw on Twitter that it had a B+ cinema score in 2002
over the C+. Over the C+ that Halloween Ends got, or C-.
Who gave this a B+?
I don't know. I guess maybe at the time, because people just wanted to see Michael Myers be Michael Myers.
Yeah.
And I mean, we get plenty of that. Yeah, we get pretty decent kills, no less, and Resurrection. I mean, the fact that he takes that girl's head off with one slice of a knife.
Yeah.
In any reality, that is no way possible, and it's no way possible to have done that. But it's Michael's character. He's strong as fuck, and I mean, I guess, but
yeah,
then another thing that I guess you could say is not likable, but iconic per se, maybe in a silly way, is Trick or Treat Motherfucker, and then Karate Kick.
You know what? I I'm remembering when I saw it in the theater, it got a cheer, but I mean, not from me. I mean, I was so this is 2002, the summer, so like I just graduated high school, and so like
Mhm.
I should have been maybe entertained by this nonsense, but I wasn't. But I remember the crowd that was there cheered. They liked it. I thought it was
Yeah,
silly.
I guess it's all the Busta Rhymes fans, which is respectable. I mean, I guess that's why this movie still has its like slight
Oh, it
merit, is
has.
that
It
yes,
definitely
Busta Rhymes is
has
in it,
like.
but
I'm not gonna say it has a Halloween 3 cult following, but it definitely has like
it
a
has its
few
own.
a few people that are like, it's not that bad. Like there's a few people that like ride with
I'm
it.
just sitting here because those people that defended Resurrection don't like Halloween Ends, and I'm just like, you're defending one of the worst ones, or possibly the worst one of the franchise, and you're gonna shit on Halloween Ends for being different.
Yep,
Let's see.
exactly. So after Resurrection, a lot of horror movie franchises are being rebooted, remade, whatever. We already had Texas Chainsaw. When did Nightmare was after Halloween, right? The remake.
Yeah, it came out in 2010. It
Yeah, okay.
actually so first it was Halloween, then Friday the 13th, and then Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay, so it was like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then like House of Wax, like Hills Have Eyes, like stuff like that were being
Yeah,
remade first, and then
fucking love the House of Wax remake.
yeah,
By the
it's
way,
actually I actually really like it really
such
a
a
lot too.
such an excellent remake. Very underrated. I don't
Yeah.
understand why it got so poorly received.
Also good chasing for Paris Hilton, I think too. She is a good
Yeah,
like
even though she
uh
was easily one of the worst things about the movie, her death brought a lot of satisfaction to me.
yeah. This is like I mean she's just in it just because like she was such a hot thing
Paris Hilton. Yeah,
at
I
the
get
time.
it. Like they just kind of threw her in there, but I just felt like she didn't belong there. But I was like,
Yeah.
whatever. We got to see a spear go through her head. I'm fine.
Yeah, and and she leaned into that marketing, man. She made those shirts that say "See Paris Die" on like whatever the release date was. So she leaned into it. That was good for her.
Yeah.
So they decide to remake Halloween. I immediately didn't like the idea because I was like, I don't Halloween's perfect the way it is. And then when they found out who was going to do it, I was like, I really don't want that to happen because as much as I like The Devil's Rejects, I'm not a fan of House of a Thousand Corpses, and I'm not really a fan of like a lot of the stuff he's done.
Actually, I love House of a Thousand Corpses because it just feels like a very it just feels like a super campy, ridiculous version of Texas Chainsaw, which it basically is.
Yeah.
Just you got the redneck hillbilly family, just being
Yeah.
just being fucking people, dude. Like they're just
Well,
psycho
but
people,
it's
and I'm
cool,
like, this is cool. I like this.
I like what he did with Devil's Rejects. I mean, I think he kind of it is still kind of silly, but he kind of grounded it a little bit where it felt
Yeah.
a little bit more like realistic, I guess.
And it's actually this, Devil's Rejects is a superior movie to me because it not only is better made, it just has a lot more going for it.
Yeah.
You can tell like, okay, Rob Zombie kind of like, grew in his filmmaking suddenly and he made a better movie.
Yeah.
But I didn't like Three from Hell. Three from Hell was just
either.
I
haven't liked
couldn't
him
get
a lot. I
past
mean,
it.
I try to keep my mouth shut about him because like he has a lot of defenders, and then like he has a lot of Halloween defenders, especially now.
There's nothing you can tell me that there's nothing that you can tell me that'll redeem Three from Hell because of the way it handles Captain Spaulding.
Yeah.
I know Sid Haig got sick and he couldn't film the rest of his scenes, but I just thought that him dying off screen was very cheap.
Yeah, I thought so too. I agree.
I was just like, wow.
Yeah,
I'm like
I
5
agree.
minutes into the movie. I'm just like, I'm not watching this anymore.
Well,
But anyway.
here's what I'll say about Rob Zombie's Halloween. I hated it when I first saw it. In subsequent years, I've grown to appreciate parts of it. I will say, as a fan, I love that he was a part of bringing Danielle Harris back in some fashion, like having her play Annie. I thought that was really cool, and like I love what she actually wrote something on the movie's like anniversary, like 15th anniversary, which was like in September, about how like at that point in her career she wasn't sure what she was kind of doing anymore, and he kind of brought her back into like that franchise that like kind of made her a star when she was a kid, and like I appreciate that. I actually, as a fan, when I first saw the movie, even the stuff I didn't like, I still thought the last half of the movie was decent enough, which is basically like a Cliff's Notes remake of Halloween. It's like a very quick like beat for beat, like but within like 30 minutes. I I like that.
I personally, oh, so when I watched Halloween for the remake for the first, I was a kid. You know, I was a kid when all these were coming out. You know,
Yeah.
so I was like, but I didn't see it until it came out on DVD. And as a kid, I mean, yeah, I guess it was fine. You know, I didn't really look into it that deeply. But as I got older and I started, you know, delving more into Halloween, I started to not like it.
No.
I couldn't get. I mean, I appreciated what Rob Zombie tried to do and give Michael a backstory. You know, he came from a broken home. This triggered his, psychoactive responses to like the way he's murderous and whatnot. Um, I just didn't like that they basically made Michael Myers a murderous Chewbacca.
Yeah, he was just like a Hulk. I mean, and I'm not gonna take any away from how Tyler Mane played him because I think like
Oh no,
in like
Tyler
certain
Mane
ways,
did
in certain ways
I
he's
thought
very
Tyler Mane
like
did a really good job, but
yeah.
I just didn't like the idea of Michael Myers being this giant dude, you know, mercilessly brutalizing everybody that he comes across.
Yeah.
It was for me.
Oh, you're good. You're
Uh,
good. Yeah. You're
uh,
back.
you got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. The first one was fine, I guess. Like you say, you know, it was decent enough, especially in the second half. But I don't know. It just didn't do it for me in the end.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, like I mean, even to this day, I don't like the first hour. Like it feels. I mean, he did this more in the second one, which is what he wanted to do. He wanted to make it more of a Rob Zombie movie. Like the first hour is a
Mhm.
Rob Zombie movie. Like
Big time.
it really is. And like,
It's basically the Firefly family, but with Michael
yeah,
Myers. You know.
yeah, and it's like it doesn't work for me at all. Now the second half, which is more of like a remake of like the original movie, there's stuff I think that works, and there's stuff that I don't think that works.
Hmm.
Nothing against what's her name, Scout Tyler Compton, Taylor
Yeah,
Compton,
Taylor.
uh, who plays Lori in this. I actually met her at a convention. She was very nice. I don't like the way he directed her to play it or how she's written. I don't think any of the characters are likable. Like even she's annoying, and like she shouldn't be annoying if I need to root for her in the
She was
end.
just screaming too much.
Like she's just as like annoying as her friends. Like it's fine for Annie to be annoying, and it's fine for
'Cause,
Linda
yeah,
to be
that's
annoying.
always been her character.
Yeah, it's fine for them to both be kind of bitchy. Like whatever.
Hmm.
They can both be a little promiscuous. That was always in the original movie. But like
Hmm.
Lori comes off as a brat. And I'm not gonna even say that it's the actress' fault. I think that's how he wrote it and how he wanted her to play it. And it just doesn't I don't have any sympathy for her. And that's
No,
and I Malcolm McDowell is like hit or miss. Like he's no Donald Pleasance, of course. There's
I
moments where I
liked him
thought
as
he was good, and
Logan.
there's moments where I was like, no, you're too over the top. But like Rob
Exactly.
Zombie has said that like Donald Pleasance was over the top, but like Donald Pleasance, at least in that first movie, knew how to like subdue it. It wasn't just like he was just like maniacally like
Yeah,
saying things. Like
because Donald Pleasance in like the first two movies, like he really didn't know 100% what he was dealing with. He only had the idea, so that's why he was so like, look, I'm a doctor. I'm his doctor personally. I
yeah,
can try to still help him. And then yes, in 4, 5, and 6, he's more like, I'm tired of this shit. Like he's back. I need to fucking kill him. And
yeah,
that's where you could probably say like, okay, yeah, he was over the top. And maybe that's why Rob Zombie said it. Like, yes, he's kind of, frantic about everything.
yeah,
But yeah, Malcolm McDowell in the remakes, I thought he played a decent Loomis, but it didn't even feel like Dr. Loomis
yeah,
for most of the case. I just felt like he was just another guy
yeah,
in this that just so happened to be there at the right time.
yeah,
And I don't know, I just felt like, he tried too hard maybe.
yeah.
But it's like you say, maybe that's what Rob Zombie wanted, that's the way he wrote these characters, fine. But it just wasn't Dr. Loomis to me. It was just Malcolm McDowell in a trench coat.
Yeah, exactly. I do like when Danielle Harris gets. I think that scene's really cool when she gets attacked, and because it's pretty like visceral and like where she's like crawling away, and he just kind of drags her back, and like I think
Mhm.
all that stuff's really good. I think the stuff when Lori finds her is good. I don't like the chase so much because like you said, her scream is kind of like annoyingly high pitched, and it's
Mhm.
not even like how Jamie Lee Curtis does in the first one, where like you can like you really are eager to help her. It sounds like
Yeah.
she's just trying too hard, and I don't like the way it's shot. It's shot really weird. Even though I like the idea of it being like a windy like kind of fall Halloween night, and that stuff's kind of cool. but the way it's shot and the way she's running away from it, there's no real suspense in that chase at all. I do like the shot of him finally getting her and then walking away with her. They use that a lot in the trailer and stuff where he's like carrying her.
Yeah,
and
that was
like,
actually pretty neat. I like that. It kind of shows that, maybe he's not so much a monster as much, but he recognizes that that's his sister. And
Yeah.
that's actually something that I didn't like about the remake too, is that they kind of just like, delved right into the whole brother sister thing
yeah,
instead of like keeping it like, more substance flowy for a potential sequel.
yeah,
But I mean, I think that was something that maybe Rob Zombie felt that, okay, well, they should have just done that from the beginning, like make
Yeah.
it known that they're siblings. But I think that's something that the first one did really well, is, they just made it seem like Michael was just some guy,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's what the idea was. And that's probably why this remake doesn't work for me too, is that, we know that he's probably not going to kill Lori,
yeah.
at first glance. That's why he carries her instead of like, brutalize
Like
brutal
sympathetic toward, yeah.
just the first 10 minutes. Everything else is a big glob of nothing to me.
Yeah, so I mean, I think he said the only reason he would make another one is they allowed him to make it his own, and to his credit, I guess he does. This is very
He
much
does.
this is a
You
Rob
can
Zombie.
appreciate it.
This
You
is a
can
Rob
appreciate
Zombie.
it.
I
Being
mean,
different, but it just,
Michael Myers isn't really even fully in his mask for a lot of the movie. It's just like a, and I know I'm sounding like I'm complaining about nitpicky stuff that people are probably complaining about with Halloween Ends, but like there is like it. I don't know. It's just like this movie is like nasty. It doesn't even like have any. I don't think it has any redeeming qualities like at all. Like at this point, Laurie is completely unlikable, and I guess what he was trying to convey is that like there's all this trauma and like this is what she would be like, and like I get that, but like you still need to have. I mean, someone told me that the person that you're supposed to latch on to do in this one is Annie, because Annie is a bit more sympathetic, but I don't even think that is written as well as it could be. That like what those dynamics are now, that like she's trying to get better, like she almost like she went through this too, so why are you like putting this all on yourself kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Laurie's doing it because she's like, oh, I'm Michael Myers' sister, I'm like all fucked up, like there's this whole like thing that's running throughout the whole movie.
It's just what was silly to me was that it felt like a cult movie again,
Yeah, it did.
because we see Sherry Moon Zombie, who is supposed to be Laurie's mother,
Yeah,
in this, and a younger Michael Myers, who's not even the same actor that played him before, some
Right.
other kid. And I don't know, I just felt like, I don't know, it hurts me to even think about, because I can't even put it together in my head. Like, what, I don't know what they were what he was thinking with this. Like you say, yeah, he wanted to make it his own movie instead of just another Halloween movie. But
yeah.
it felt like a season of the witch. It felt like a season of the witch movie where it doesn't even feel like a Halloween movie anymore.
Yeah, and like the funny thing is,
Michael
I'm gonna say this right now. The only reason I have it is because it's in that box set that's behind me up there. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't even know if the completist in me would want to own it individually. But
I don't even think I own the first one anymore. I used to have it on DVD, and I don't even think I own it anymore.
Yeah, it's there. For better or worse. I don't enjoy it at all. I mean, I was told I should rewatch it for Halloween just to be like, hey, you haven't watched it in a while, and I admittedly haven't watched it in a while. I do remember thinking it was terrible, and really disheartening as a Halloween fan to like have it be the way that it was, because I feel like he wanted, like, people saying that David Gordon Green is making the anti-Halloween, but at least the essence of it is still in Halloween Ends. I don't think it's there in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 like at all. I feel like he's almost like fighting against it so much that he is making it as far away from a Halloween movie as he can possibly make it. And that's kind of where I leave that one.
And he succeeds gratefully in it.
Before we wrap up, just talking about the last three movies, the Gordon Green trilogy just as a whole. I did want to ask, since we were talking about movies that had Danielle Harris and Scout Taylor Compton in them. The whole stuff. What do you think about the whole stuff with like them being upset that they didn't get a proper I guess, response from Jamie Lee Curtis about they were
So
they were at the
so
premiere for Halloween Ends. For some people that don't know, they were
Mhm.
invited. They were invited, and they are on this. They have a podcast together. It's called the Talk Scary to Me podcast, and they were talking about their experience of going. Like the week before their episode dropped, they had this picture of like Heather Langenkamp, who played Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street, Amanda Wise, who played Tina in Nightmare on Elm Street, Jamie Lee Curtis, Danielle Harris, and of course Scout. So it was like this big Scream Queen photo that everyone was like, "Oh, that's so awesome!" They all took a picture together. Uh, but I guess the reality of like said picture was that uh, when they approached Jamie Lee Curtis, I guess different. I guess they approached her at different times. First, Danielle Harris. I believe Danielle Harris approached her first, and basically was like, "I played your daughter in like these movies, Halloween 4 and 5." And Jamie Lee Curtis was like,
Mhm.
"I've never seen those movies." It was very dismissive towards her.
Mhm.
Scout said that she didn't say exactly what Jamie Lee Curtis said to her, but she said it's very similar to
Like I play you in the
like I
remakes.
played you, but it was very similar to what she did with Danielle Harris. They felt slighted by her, I guess, and even though they said they were aware that she was busy that night and she had a lot going on, I guess they're like, she's like our idol, and we were expecting something else. Um, I'll give you my 2 cents first. Jamie Lee Curtis has always made it like known that she is not a horror movie fan. Like she despite the fact that she was in Halloween, Halloween 2, The Fog,
Which gave
Terror
her
Train, Prom Night,
yeah.
Halloween H2O, Halloween Resurrection, Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends. She's not a horror movie person. Like she admits it. And there is no way that Jamie Lee Curtis has seen Halloween 4 or Halloween 5 or Rob Zombie's remake or Rob Zombie's sequel to that remake.
Mhm.
So that's where my thing is at. I don't think it was a personal like, ooh, I don't know who you are, don't talk to me. It was just more
Yeah.
like she's busy. It's her night. Like it's the premiere of her movie.
Exactly.
I don't like. There are some Halloween fans that are like, no, Jamie Lee Curtis should know who they are, but like, there is no way in hell that Jamie Lee Curtis has sat down and watched any of those sequels and would have known who Danielle Harris is, or Scout, Taylor Compton. Like, she wouldn't have known at all.
Yeah.
They're not on her
So-
radar.
So the way I look at it is very similar to yours too. I mean, yeah, if you know Jamie Lee Curtis by now, you know that she's not a horror movie watcher. Yeah,
Yeah.
she started them because that's what gave her the biggest momentum in her career,
Yeah.
most notably the first Halloween. But even I'm pretty sure she only watches the movies she's in.
Yeah.
And even those that includes the horror movies she's in, and that's the only horror movie she probably ever watched. And I personally think that Danielle Harris and Scout Taylor Compton are being kind of I think they're just being whiny about it. Like they had an expectation that they wanted to be met, and the fact that they didn't get it met, I think it pissed them off more than it hurt them.
Yeah.
And apparently the first podcast they did, that they went on this whole rant about, like, oh, well, that basically what the fans were saying is that she should know, like, I thought that she would know who we were. I guess they felt entitled to that. And I heard that they even deleted that first episode and redid the episode because they didn't want to get flack for what they said, because they expressed their
Wow, I mean,
distaste.
if you're
towards
gonna
their
roll
interaction.
with that opinion, then just go with it and just keep it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and I get it. And I get it. Yeah, you guys are all, part of the Halloween family in different ways, obviously. But, I don't understand how you could miss the fact that, Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't watch horror movies, and much less the sequels to her own franchise that,
she
gave
doesn't
her
even like
that.
I mean, like, she doesn't even like. There are horror movies that we love her in that she doesn't even like. She doesn't speak entirely fondly about The Fog. I mean, I love The Fog. She did The Fog because like she after Halloween she thought she would get a lot of movies and she wasn't. And like
Mhm.
John Carpenter was like, "Yo, I'm doing this movie. Do you want this part?" And she said, "Yeah." And I was like, "That's what it was, a job." And then like
Exactly.
all the subsequent horror movies she did were jobs. Like they were just like people need to understand that. Well, Jamie Lee Curtis is not real, other than the first movie. She loves the first movie, but she's
Mhm.
not a Halloween fan. she is a Laurie Strode fan. She loves the character of Laurie Strode. So like there, and that's the key difference, which is why she was willing to revisit it in H2O, which is why she was willing to revisit it in this last trilogy we got her in, because like she likes the idea of exploring where that character would have gone, all those years later after what happened to her on that one night.
And like, even then, I mean, I get with the Danielle Harris thing. Like, maybe, yeah, she could have been familiar with it, but I'm not even surprised with the whole Scout Taylor Compton thing, because even Jamie Lee Curtis didn't like the idea of Halloween being remade. She even expressed it very clearly, like, this is something you don't touch.
Right.
You don't have to revisit this. Like, I don't see the need for it. And I'm 100% sure she didn't watch those, because obviously.
Right.
And it's like I said, in my opinion, I just think they're overreacting to the whole thing. Like, I get it. Like, you didn't get the reaction you wanted, but it wasn't about you. This was about Jamie Lee Curtis, and this was her night, her movie, and they made it about themselves, basically. And
by the way, when
a lot of people were saying is that, oh, they weren't making it about themselves. Like, they're just as entitled to a good reaction from Jamie Lee Curtis as anybody. And I'm like, well, not necessarily, because they started what is considered the worst films of the franchise. I mean, I know 4 and 5 had their merits, but they're some of the lesser sequels of the franchise. And can you blame Jamie Lee Curtis for not knowing who the fuck they are?
Yeah, and I say this as someone that actually likes Part 4 a lot. I mean, as a horror fan, I can respect that Danielle Harris more so than her friend. I'm just kidding. Yeah. More so than Scout, more so than her, like, kind of kept that franchise in her own way. Like, that character, Jamie Lloyd, like, people in that love the Halloween movies love that character. She kept the franchise alive in her own little way back in the day. And but you can't expect this, and also, if you've ever worked a premiere and after party, it's not just like fun. You're getting pulled around a lot. If you work, if you're an actor, you're getting pulled around a lot. If you're working press, you're also moving around a lot. There's a lot going on, and
she's tired.
And then she took the damn picture. She didn't know who they were. But she still took the picture.
You could tell right away in her face too that
she had no idea who they were.
She didn't know who they were, much less she didn't even look like she wanted to take that picture.
I know.
Her smile was like one of the most not so genuine smiles I'd ever seen her do. That angry fucking set of pictures that she has where she's like, shh.
And Scott was almost crying about it. She was almost crying about it on the podcast, and I was like, well, all right, lower your expectations, because if I had to choose, if Jamie Lee Curtis knew who one of them was, and I was gonna say she won't know who either one, but if I had to choose which one she might know, it'd be Danielle Harris. I wouldn't expect her to know who the other girl was at all whatsoever.
Exactly. That's what I say.
I bet she hasn't even. Jamie Lee Curtis probably even looked at a cover for Rob Zombie's Halloween. She doesn't even probably know what the poster looks like. Let alone it's whatever. You have I will say this, they have a ton of horror fans that know who they are and appreciate what they brought to the franchise in their own way. There are people that love those Rob Zombie movies. I don't love them, but there are people that do. So take that with you, instead of being you each bring your own amount of legacy to
instead of being selfish about it, you're making it about yourself. Just accept what you have. I feel that their fan base, for either of them or both of them combined, is a pretty fair number, and it's actually probably a very high one at that. I mean, a lot of people love the remakes. A lot of people love the movies that Danielle's in. I mean, deal with it. Just because you're not as big as Jamie Lee and you expect to, share that with her, doesn't entitle you to shit. I feel like when they walked up to her, they felt like that she owed them something.
I can see Danielle Harris flipping her hair, getting ready to be like, "Oh my god, I played your daughter." She's like, "What?"
Danielle Harris, I mean, despite this, I think she's a lovely person. I've seen interviews.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she's very sweet. She's got a very not so diva, but she's got a very girly personality going for her.
Yeah.
And she embraces that. And I've always thought that was cool. And yeah, it's like you say, I can see her too, just walking up to her, "Oh my god, I played your daughter," this and that. All excited and just being shut down, who?
Yeah, exactly. So without having to go into each individual movie, I mean, what overall, now that we have all three of them, you have Halloween 2018, you have Halloween Kills, you have Halloween Ends, like what do you think of the stories now that you have all three of them together? I mean, do you think it started as this whole cohesive thing that this is where they were going to go the entire time, or this kind of like was built out of like, all right, this one was a hit, now we need to make two more? Like, what do you kind of think
Mhm.
they're
So personally, look, as much as I love the other two, they didn't really have to be made. They really didn't. Because I felt that Halloween 2018 gave us what we wanted. And
right?
that was the showdown that, we've been wanting to see, I guess, like have a good close up, because after what Resurrection did to H2O, this felt like a good opportunity to, like, wrap up Laurie Strode's story. And I thought 2018 did a really good job at doing that. Like, even if we didn't get a movie after 2018, I would have been more than happy with the ending we've got
Yeah,
with,
I would
you
too.
know,
It was a proper
because
legacy sequel. I thought like it was a really
exactly.
it did everything that I think a fan would want it to do. Like,
And I mean, I thought that the whole leaving Michael in the basement with the burning fire trapped was a little like, okay, well, this is very open ended. Like, he could still come back very much. And if you watch till the end of the credits, you hear him breathing, which implies that, yes, he's
he's
coming
alive.
back. But I know about the alternate ending, and the alternate ending basically had them both kill each other at the same time, or it was implied that, like, okay, Laurie gets stabbed fatally, Michael gets stabbed fatally,
Yeah.
you know and it ends with the whole shot still, like, of them on the back of the truck. But it also goes back to Michael, whose breathing is slowing down,
Right.
and he lets out one last gasp of air, and that's when the credits roll. And I would have loved to see that ending. I thought that would have
I
been
feel
a,
like there's like shots of that ending. They use
in
in
the
some of the
trailer.
trailer. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, yeah, because the whole final, because I don't know if you saw, like, the teaser, the teaser for the trailer, which came out the day before. Um, at the very end of it, you see Laurie going up to Michael about to stab him, and they're
Okay.
outside already because you can tell by, like, the big lights and everything.
Yeah.
And I was expecting to see that. I was just like, oh my god, we're gonna get this. Like, this is like the end of, like, Laurie Strode's, like, story. Like, are we gonna see them, like, duke it out, like, once and for all? Like, this is it.
Yeah.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, like, I love the sequels, Kills, had its, purpose. This is Michael, like, pissed off, like, dude,
Angry.
you
Yeah.
really you tried to fucking kill me, like, now I'm gonna go kill the whole town.
Yeah.
And I love Kills, for what it is. It's not perfect, but it has a lot of its merits. Ends, I thought, was the perfect conclusion to this trilogy. Yes, it has some issues, but I love the movie, and I go as far as to say it could even be one of the best ones of the franchise. And there are moments where I'm thinking that it could even top 2018, even though 2018 is clearly the better movie. But the fact that it, concludes itself once and for all and doesn't have, like, it's not scared to do it
Yeah.
either.
Yeah. I agree.
And I don't know. I thought this trilogy was one of the best things we got out of the Halloween franchise, other than, like, the first two movies and arguably maybe the Thorn trilogy. But I mean, the Thorn trilogy just kind of falls into its big pit of confusion. Um, yeah, I think this new trilogy has to be one of the better made and possibly one of the best, set of Halloween films we've gotten for this franchise.
Yeah. I think we need to
That's
give
just me.
David. I think we need to give David Gordon Green and Danny McBride a lot of credit
Big time.
for bringing the franchise back into like this kind of time period, because like the other big ones are kind of stuck in limbo, right? Friday the 13th is wrapped up in like a lawsuit, like legal thing. They don't know what they want to do with Nightmare on Elm Street. So Halloween is like it got to go through this whole period of like, a new generation of like horror movies, like in these
Hmm.
other big franchises, other than I guess say Scream, but Scream started in like the late 90s. So like this gets to carry on through like the 70s, 80s, the early 2000s, and like late 2000s. So like
It's
it's
been
cool.
going on for 44
So,
years now. Yeah.
and then like even though Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends saw diminishing like box office returns, they're still making enough money to be like, hey, they turned a profit, and like
Yeah.
they were highly successful, and like you can't take away how successful 2018 was. I think 2018 for a straight horror movie still has the best opening weekend for like just a flat like straight horror movie. For it's like $76.2 million on its opening weekend. That is what some of these movies were making by the end of their run, if that.
Yeah.
So like there was like a level of excitement behind the 2018 one, which I appreciated as a fan.
Mhm.
You know, there are also really things I like. I know I made that joke, I think, when I talked with you on one episode when we talked about ends, where I said that Jamie Lee Curtis was at that convention, and you're like, David Gordon Green finally gave Lori a family, and they were like, well, I mean, you had a son in H2O, and I know that you don't know who Danielle Harris is. You don't know who Danielle Harris is, but you had a daughter, you know, off screen in another timeline. But I do agree with the fact that this whole, like, especially in the first two movies, it's kind of like almost sisterhood that forms with them. I
Mhm.
thought that was really strong, and like the connection was really strong. I liked how her daughter like clearly loved her, but was like, "Hey, like I can't live in your like kind of psychosis with this anymore. Like I'm done." Uh, and like you know, Jamie Lee Curtis talked a lot about that in the promotions for almost all three movies, but especially the first one, how like trauma kind of goes down from generation to generation. Like she ruined her daughter's life growing up because she was so fearful of like this guy coming back, and she
Right.
definitely, and then her daughter definitely didn't want that for Allison, which is I thought that was a
Mhm.
kind of cool story point to kind of have in the first one. I actually really I mean, I don't mind where Allison ends up and ends. I think that could have been cleaned up a little bit. Because you basically don't get you basically have to assume that she's like this because her mother and her friends all get killed in one night, and now
Mhm.
she's just kind of broken from that. But it would have been nice because like the girl that we meet in the first and second one, I liked her a lot. Like, and you
Yeah.
could tell that they were like setting her up to be like Laurie Strode like 2.0. That's what she was like kind of supposed to be. But I like the initial setup for her. I thought that was really strong.
Mhm.
I love the new music that John Carpenter made for it. Like you could tell that
Oh yeah.
he was excited to like to work on like a Halloween movie he was proud of. You know,
Mhm.
like because that was another big thing too. Like right, we talked about with H2O how he didn't want to come back for that. David Gordon
Yeah.
Green pitched him on. Now I can be jaded because a lot of Halloween fans are. They're like, well, they threw him a paycheck, but he's been offered a paycheck a lot for this kind of
Oh
stuff,
yeah. And I'm
and
pretty
he
sure they
turned
were
it down.
big paychecks even back then. You know,
Yeah,
the
you know, I think David Gordon Green pitched him on like a really good idea, and like you know, he recently said that he really liked Halloween Ends, which I'm sure that's going to make a lot of people upset too. He said that
he said he said it was weird, but that
he
that he
appreciated
appreciated what was done.
what he did, yeah. Um, and I like you know, and like I said, other than Rick Rosenthal and Halloween 2, I think David Gordon Green came the closest to recapturing what the look and feel of like the original Halloween.
Mhm.
That whole like scene in 2018, that whole like almost return to Haddonfield scene where Michael Myers is like on the streets and everyone's trick
Just
or
in that one
treating,
shot.
and that one that is like the I love that's like one of my favorite scenes from like the entire franchise.
Yeah.
It's so well done, and I also when talking about Halloween Kills, I've never understood the robust hate for it. Like it's to me, it was like it's called Halloween Kills. He's clearly pissed off. He's angry.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a lot of murder in it because it's called Halloween Kills. It's also the
Mhm.
middle chapter of like a trilogy, so it's not gonna be a complete movie. I understand people being upset by the whole like repetitive evil dies tonight. I even hated the whole thing with the mental patient, but then I kind of understood like if mob mentality is so strong and everyone's not thinking clearly, then maybe
Mhm.
that could happen where it clearly wasn't him. But maybe like
Yeah.
with maybe with all the chaos that like that would happen. And I'm like I even got into like I got around to even thinking that was fine. Like I was like, all right,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
And then
It's like you
also
say. Yeah. It's just it's got some issues, but I don't understand the hate for it either.
it's
Like
also shot
the
really well too. Like it's a really good
yeah.
looking movie. Like it's like it's also it's weird because it's darker in a different way than like the 2018 film is. Um,
Mhm.
but you can tell that like it's even clear how they do the title cards for each one. The title cards for Halloween 2018 mirror the ones from the 78
The first
movie,
one.
and the
Mhm.
title cards for Halloween 2 mirror the ones from the
Two.
1981 Halloween 2, and then of course Halloween Ends mirrors the Season of the Witch title card. So you can tell like that it's almost with like the look and feel. That's what he was going for with each one.
Mhm.
Also, I just loved like when I first heard that they were bringing Kyle Richards back to play Lindsay in the second one. I was like, all right, well, guess she still really act because like you know I know her from like the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Like she's like she's pretty bougie now. But even I thought that like to have her have that one cool moment, of like little mini chase scene, and have her like have a scene where she can has it out with him. I thought that was a fun scene too, and I thought she did a really good job.
I honestly thought they were gonna kill her off too, because I'm
I
like,
did too.
well,
I thought
everyone else
they were
off.
gonna
I'm
kill
just
her
like, you
off.
might as well.
I thought they were gonna kill her off simply because she was Kyle Richards, not because they didn't like Kyle Richards, but like it would be shocking in a way because of people that might know her from the reality TV stuff. And
Yeah.
I feel like she got added in the ends as an afterthought, maybe while they were filming it or in the midst of writing it, because like she
I
didn't
think
really
it was
have.
just because she survived. They wanted to like make it like remind us that like, hey, she's still alive.
Yeah, oh yeah, of course.
But
and then with like
but she was sidelined. I think that was one of the things. I'm like, you brought back Lindsay just to have her in 3 scenes. That felt a
Yeah.
little.
Agreed. And then like so and then the Corey Cunningham stuff in Halloween Ends, I actually think it's really good. Rowan Campbell deserves, he heard he did an interview where they told David Gordon Green and Jamie Lee Curtis told him there's going to be a lot of backlash for us doing it this way. Can you handle it? And like I think he probably can. Like
I think
he was good
because actually, I mean, despite the hatred, I think a lot of fans that even didn't like the movie,
Yeah.
gave Rowan Campbell the praise as Corey. Because personally, yes, it's actually he's actually one of my favorite things about Ends. I think he actually is my favorite thing about Ends because he just plays his role, down to the bone. And I actually there were some instances where I actually thought he was a very scary aspect of the movie too, no less. When he kills a doctor, like when we first see him like kill somebody, like actually, mercilessly killing someone for the first time.
Yeah.
That's chill down my spine. I'm just like, oh shit, like this is happening.
Yeah. And like I said, I appreciate, if anything, I guess we can blame the marketing from Universal and Blumhouse for like making it seem like Halloween Ends was going to be like a celebrity death match between Laurie and Michael, and like but it's also a movie you have to market, and like that's the only way they could market it, to get people to like really embrace it, especially since they knew, they were aware that it was leaking out that like there was like, oh, I think there's a copycat in this, and like all that kind of stuff was kind of out there. And like they had to do something, and like maybe the misdirection was like in poor taste for people expecting like that, but
the way I defend Ends when it comes to this whole like, oh, it was supposed to be this like like you say, a celebrity death match. We got our final showdown between Laurie and Michael basically for the first time in 2018. Exactly, like the fight that they were expecting again for Ends was already happened. It's like, why would you want another repeat of that? I mean, we get to see them duke it out one last time in the end. It was a little quick, which I actually thought it could have been fleshed out just a little bit, but
it could have been longer. I think the fight could have been a little longer. I think it's only like 4 minutes on screen.
But given because the way I also defend this trilogy and Ends specifically is that they made Michael a human being. Like 100%. They never like, went back to the whole, oh, he's an immortal man walking around.
Yeah.
But yes, they implied that, the more he kills, the less human he becomes. But that never really meant that, he's immortal. That just meant that like, he just becomes colder, and it fuels the rage in him to want to kill more. And that's what makes him so strong. But the fact that he got, torn apart basically at the end of Kills, he got a pitchfork in the back, the whole mob like did away with him. This is an elderly man, and he went 4 years without killing anybody. Of course he's going to be weak. And after he kills the cop, we get Michael Myers back for a minute. Like that actually shows that when he kills someone, it feels that evil in him, and that's why he gets all shaky and seizuring and stuff when he kills the guy. And it's like, oh, okay, then there you go. That's what makes sense. And the whole like oh well, he basically got bullied by a nerd, and I'm just like, no, he's just a frail old man now that didn't have his killing for that long. And a lot of people make the argument is that, well, he went 40 years without killing anybody. I'm like, yeah, but as soon as he got out, what did he do? He killed 2 people or 4 people, actually 3, I don't know. Point is, like, I don't know. I defend Ends because, yes, it made Michael Myers more human. The whole final showdown between him and Laurie was a little fast, but it made sense in the terms of like, these two are old already, like, they've already had their, run. One of them has to come out on top.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree, and I will say this too. I thought that as a whole, I think it does. Like, I think we talked about it a little bit when we were talking about the build up to ends when we were recording before, and like if you look at it, each movie is about different things. Like the first one is about like how people deal with trauma, like even down the line
Mhm.
throughout all the relatives and stuff. Like so, that's Laurie's story. Like the 2018
Right.
movie is Laurie's story. And then the second one is more like the whole mob mentality and the whole like town being affected by what went on like 40 plus years ago, and then like what kind of went on this very Halloween night that we're dealing with now. And then also Michael Myers just being extremely like pissed off, and like
Mhm.
there's a lot of anger in that movie, and like uh and then like with ends you get the whole idea that like how this like kind of evil kind of spreads, like it's like this kind of contagious kind of thing. And like I think what we kind of learned is that this big showdown that we were expecting, it was bigger than Laurie and Michael. It was more about like how his evil infected the entire city of Haddonfield, and like
Mhm.
how like it was like a lot bigger than like you know all of that
Laurie Strode.
than Laurie Strode. And I think even she realized that like at one point
Mhm.
where it's like this isn't just about her.
Yeah.
um I also love to just to kind of the trolley stuff, like the people that will complain that she's sidelined, and I that's why I don't complain that she's sidelined in Halloween Kills in the hospital, because I know I've been that person in Halloween 2 because she was sidelined in the hospital in Halloween 2. They'll be like, man, like I hate that like she was just fucking in a hospital bed the entire time in Halloween Kills, and I'll just look at them like, but you love Halloween 2, where the exact same thing is going on, where she is like
Right.
in a hospital bed for most of the movie, barely has lines, and
Yeah,
like,
but
but
I was actually surprised she even wanted to come back for it. I mean, she
yeah,
didn't have like as big a role for that
I was
one.
like, but you love that one,
Yeah,
like that's cool.
it's like you're basically complaining about something you love. Like, where's the where exactly? What sense are you trying to make in that argument?
You
Like,
know what I
you're
didn't like though?
basically.
I didn't like that he killed her daughter. I mean, I know it was necessary to
Yeah,
someone
that was.
someone important had to go, and I get that.
Mhm.
And I certainly didn't want it to be Allison, but like I did also didn't want it to be her daughter either. And I love like the whatever however you feel about kills. I do love all the stuff from the point where they're in that house to where like Allison gets thrown down the stairs, and then she watches him kill her boyfriend,
Oh,
and like
actually, I have something to add to that.
all that.
I actually watched a video recently that points something out about, after Karen takes the mask off of Michael and she stabs him in the back, he gets up and under his breath, very silent, very like quietly, he says, "Give it back."
Oh, he talks.
He
I'm
talks.
gonna like watch that and turn it up all the way tonight and see
No,
if
I'm not even joking because I didn't even notice the first time. And to confirm it, because at first I thought, okay, this could be easily fake. I went and watched the clip from the actual movie,
yeah.
and it's there, and it's
Shit.
there.
Well, I'm gonna watch that
And
tonight then.
it's actually, and I get the whole gimmick about Michael Myers not speaking is what makes him so scary. But hearing him talk so lightly like he did,
Yeah.
it was very like it was super chilling to hear that. Like, and it actually made James Jude Corney one of my favorite Michael Myers. Just after
Yeah.
watching that video, I'm like, yeah, he's got to be my favorite now. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
he got away
Holding
with
his
it.
own. Yeah. Yeah, and I
So,
thought she like Judy Greer. I actually thought Judy Greer was great in both movies, but I thought she
oh
was
yeah.
really good in like those final scenes where like she takes the mask and like she lures them out there, and there's that whole
Hmm.
callback to the whole like gotcha thing again.
Hmm.
Because Judy Greer doesn't get to be cool in the first one until the end, like because she's like so resistant to like I don't want this. Why is this happening? I don't want this to happen. This isn't really happening. My mom's
And then
crazy.
gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. So she has to like she doesn't get to do much. And I love that scene in 2018 where she's like acting all helpless, and then like she just pulls out the gun and like shoots
I
him.
know. Actually, when I watched it, you know what? I watched the premiere night and I actually went another time after that. And both times when that moment happened, I heard cheers. Like
Yeah, there
people
was a
were
cheers. Yeah,
clapping. Like,
when I saw it, I saw it twice in theaters, and it was the same reaction both times. Like everyone
mhm.
thought that was great, and and I know some people didn't like her character initially because she was just so like I do love that they put her in like the Christmas sweater, so she's so anti-Halloween. Like she's just so like I don't even want to
She
embrace.
just played. She played the typical mom, and I thought that was pretty neat because we actually get to see a mom be a mom instead of Laurie being, a possessive mom.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And she was like she felt like what was normal in this, very abnormal situation.
yeah. I agree.
And yeah, I actually thought her getting killed off at the end of Kills was super silly.
Did he
I was just like,
teleport?
what the
He
fuck?
He teleported, right?
That's what I said. I'm like, okay, well, because the thing is that I thought, okay, he could have easily have gone to the back door, like when he killed Big John and Little John. But I'm wondering how the fuck did he cross the street without anyone noticing him?
Noticing. Yeah, I remember. I remember when it happened. I was so shocked that I couldn't focus on it being a cheap kill. But I was just so like I was so taken aback by
I
it.
know
But
I
I was
did
like,
too. I was just like, they did not. I saw him behind her. And I'm just like, oh fuck, like that's it.
and then I remember walking out of the press screening, and people were like, "Well, maybe it was a dream. Like maybe it didn't happen." I was like, "No, I think they killed her off." But like, because
I
it was
actually like the alternate ending more though, because instead of it just like because I forgot how it just it just ends on like the camera zooming in on her, right? And
on
Michael,
her, yeah, on
and
her face.
that's just
Yeah,
how
it's
it
like
ends.
it's like the way that she gets killed in the movie. It's like it's almost like this quick cut kind of
Mhm.
thing, and then like yeah, and that's it. Like
And in the alternate ending, I actually like that one more because Lori calls Karen because she knows something's off, and it rings for a while, and she's just like, "Oh fuck." Like what's going on, and then the phone gets picked up and all she hears is Michael
oh,
breathing,
it's
and
him.
she
He
just
picks it
starts
up.
crying, and she's just like, ah fuck, like my daughter is dead.
Yeah.
And I love like how she says, I'm coming for you, Michael, and she walks out of the hospital with the knife, and it zooms in on the knife like it
Also
did in
use
the.
that in the trailer too.
Yeah, they did.
All this
I don't know what the deal was about using like other footage. I mean, I get it because I actually like that
they
with
did
some
it for
trailers.
ends too. They did it with ends. There's stuff in the trailer for ends that's not in the movie. Like,
There's a scene with Allison reacting to Michael behind her in the reflection,
yeah, and
or
then there's
what
the
could
whole
have
like
been
give,
Corey. I don't know.
give me motherfucker thing is not in there either, where she's hiding behind the
Mhm.
wall. Yeah,
I honestly thought that would have been a cool addition of the movie, like "Come and Get Me, Motherfucker." Like that would have
yeah,
been neat. But
yeah.
well, we might see that in the extended cut because the physical and digital release is going to have the extended cut with
Yeah.
deleted scenes.
Oh,
So we might actually get to see some of that, but I'm not too sure. I wouldn't count on it because they didn't even do that for
I can't
2018.
wait for Halloween ends. You know what? Honestly feel like even already, and maybe because Halloween ends is so polarizing, I kind of feel like people who hated Halloween Kills a year ago are like turning they're like, oh, like it wasn't that
And the
bad.
same thing's gonna happen with Ends
It's
in a
what's
few
going to
years'
happen
time.
with this. Yeah.
No, what I was just saying is that, from a year ago, I see like all these similar names that complained about Kills that are complaining about Ends, and they go as far as to post a meme. Thanos meme is perhaps I treated you too harshly, and it's a picture of Halloween Kills.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you guys are worse than Star Wars fans. I swear, nothing
No,
ever.
that's what I'm realizing that
full circle.
now. I'm realizing that
Yeah.
now. Like going through Twitter and stuff, I'm like, I had no idea Halloween fans, and I
And
consider myself one.
I think it's just a fan base overall thing in general because all fan bases lately have just been super divided. Even with Marvel movies, like I loved Love and Thunder. I don't get the hate for it. It tried something different. Get the fuck over it. Taika
Yeah.
Waititi's known for his, comic relief.
Yeah,
You gotta
exactly.
even in Jojo Rabbit, despite like the very hard hitting scenes, he knew how to bring it back up with the light and joy that it sets out to be.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
I don't know. Like I said, Halloween Ends is going to be a cult favorite watch in a couple years'
so,
time.
too.
You just gotta wait and see. And if Malik Akkad decides to reboot it, which I know for a fact,
Yeah,
that
this
they're
is
gonna
perfect because
reboot
I
it.
was going to ask you, like, wrapping up, like, what do you think it goes from
So-
here?
So I feel that this can go one of two ways. Either they completely rehash Halloween and try the Rob Zombie approach, only not Rob Zombie style, or they give Daniel Harris an opportunity to come back as Jamie Lloyd and retcon 5 and 6.
Yeah, okay, I'll be cool with that actually.
I would love that because not only would it give because Jamie Lloyd's character just gets tossed aside in 6, and I felt like that wasn't the part closure that we needed from her, given the
Agreed.
fact that she's the highlight and star of 4 and 5. They basically did to her what they did to Laurie in Resurrection, and I didn't like that.
Yeah, yeah.
especially in the
agree.
producer's cut. The producer's cut's death was way worse than the fucking theatrical cut because the man in black ends up shooting her in the head at the hospital.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm
and then
just like, I'm like, okay, whatever. What is this, a fucking mob movie or is this a Halloween movie? Like, what's going on?
yeah, yeah,
And I feel like this could be a really good opportunity to bring back Danielle Harris, especially since she is a fan favorite, Jamie Lloyd.
yeah.
I don't know. They could even bring back James Jude Courtney as Michael Myers if he decides to come back for it. But he's made it very clear that
He
after
doesn't want to
ends
do it
that he's
anymore.
done.
He's getting
Yeah,
older. He's also I didn't realize how old he was.
yeah, he's
He, men-
old.
he mentioned it. Yeah, he mentioned it. He's
And
like
he's
a
in really
year.
good
He's a
shape too.
year.
He's a
He's
big
like
guy.
yeah. He's like 2 years older than Jamie Lee Curtis, I think. And like he like
Mhm.
yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Danielle Harris back. I also think that if they wanted to in their own way, like because Chucky is really working as a TV show, I think they could maybe transfer this over to TV if they wanted to.
That would be
I don't know what timeline they would focus on or how they would do it, or if they would just like do new people. Um, I do think the Laurie Strode stuff is done though. Like I think
No,
that's
they've made that very clear. Even Jamie Lee Curtis said that I'm done with the character. Like this is the end for Laurie. She even signed that whole like promise
oh that fake
agreement
oh the
that I'm never
promise
gonna play.
no
I will never play Laurie Strode after this again.
yeah
But I mean, they could bring back Laurie Strode, but I don't see the need for it. She got her closure. I mean, the only way I could see her coming back is if she did fake her death in Halloween 4, the way they said that she might have, even though they made it seem like, oh, she just died in some sort of car accident. But
You know what? Another one I could see working if they hadn't killed off Corey. Like he could have been like the
that's
new
another thing
shape.
too.
And then another way they could also maybe bring back Allison if they wanted to.
Is if she's
Uh,
pregnant with Corey's baby.
yeah, keep her around. I guess there's like a lot of ways they could go. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of like
Malek Akkad's not
opportunities
gonna
here.
let the franchise die though. I mean, it's gonna either come back theatrically or on Peacock or
'Cause
somewhere.
apparently Mustafa Akkad had one rule about Michael Myers is that
Oh, you couldn't kill him off.
don't kill him. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I mean, when Malik Akkad gave the rights to Blumhouse, I mean, he gave him the okay to like, okay, yeah, do
yeah,
with it.
yeah, I gave him all the creative rights to do what they wanted, and then because he knew after 3 movies he'd get it back. Like,
Exactly. And you know, they said yes, Michael's dead in this timeline though, but
yeah,
Michael's not dead,
yeah,
as a whole.
exactly. This whole
So
franchise has been a choose your own adventure for a long time now.
basically,
Yeah,
so yeah, in my opinion, the way they could successfully bring it back if they really want the numbers is just bring back Jamie Lloyd.
yeah.
And
Daniel
can
Harris
do that. I
Daniel
mean,
Harris
because
still looks young enough to like pull off a lot. I think like
and even then, if you think about it, they don't even have to retcon 5 and 6. They could just retcon 6 in
yeah
a way because 5 has that continuation. But I really would like to see like 5 and 6 get retconned and try to pick up the whole like Jamie trying to kill her foster mother
oh there
in
yeah
Halloween 4. So that would be an interesting continuation. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of possibilities here. I mean, even if they went like the full flesh, like remake, like this is a revival of the franchise, like we're gonna just go a whole new route, new characters, new Final Girl. They could
yeah
even just. I mean, I know they can't bring back Allison because I mean Michael's dead in that one, but
yeah.
they have a lot of different ways to go about this. I do wish they would have kept Corey alive, or maybe not so made it clear that he died because he was still alive after stabbing himself in the throat, and I'm just like, okay, this has something going for it, and then he just snaps his neck. I'm like, oh, never mind.
Whoops.
It's like, oh,
well,
okay, never mind.
I think much like Evil, this franchise will never actually die. So I think we will always have more Halloween content down the road.
I'll give it about 5 or 6 years before they decide to bring it back.
I think so too.
Because Daniel Harris will be 50 in 2027, so this could be the perfect way to in case he's older now.
I think so too. It'd be very perfect. Well, Donnie, thank you for sitting down with me and talking about these movies for a bit.
Of course.
It was fun. Of course, you're welcome back anytime. I think you might be the go-to guy for horror movies at this point. But yeah, as always, guys, you can catch us on all of our various podcast platforms: Apple Podcasts, Good Pods HQ, Google Podcasts, Spotify. There's others apparently that we're on that I've never heard of, but like if you want to listen there too. And as always, rate, listen, subscribe. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you didn't like. I know you guys like a lot of these like more focused on film episodes, so we'll probably do some more of these very soon. And once again, Donnie, thank you, and happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.
Thank-